Hello everyone, welcome to a new edition of Jan's Opening Clinic. I believe that's what we call this lovely program. It's written on the wall, but I have to turn around so that you all can see it. And I have a feeling this is not my... Do you say... In English you can't say chocolate side, right? That's a German expression. What do you say that if you are showing people the wrong half of your face, two-face style? He's handsome from the other side. But the left side, not what I want to show you guys. Anyway, this has been a great introduction as always. The show is you ask me questions about chess openings. You ask them in a news article, which we published like 2 days ago. And if you are a Chess24 premium member, I will do my best to answer that question that you post in the article. Or sometimes I won't do my best, and I will do my best to control my impulses to be snarky, or to talk down to you, or to be annoyed because I don't know the answer. Because I work both ways. I'll both be annoyed if the question is easy, so I know the answer. And I'm thinking, why do you need me for that? Can't you just switch on your engine? And I'll be annoyed if I don't know the answer. I'm thinking, come on, there's hundreds of questions I have to go through. I don't have time to spend hours doing your work here. So basically, it's a proposition that I was gonna say you can't win, but probably it's me that can't win, because I just get annoyed so easily these days. I used to have thicker skin, but it all disappeared. All these years sitting here talking to myself. Anyway, let's end with the introduction and get to the first question. Then, yeah, make a... What do you call this? Timestamp for YouTube. First question answered at 2:07. But I need to scroll down first, so maybe it's not 2:07. I have no idea how deep we're in. I also haven't asked, can you guys see me, hear me? Is the stream okay? All that good stuff? Is my phone ringing? That'd be upsetting. Alright, I scrolled all the way down. I had a look at, I think, most of the questions beforehand. There were a lot of questions. So... Normally I miss one or two randomly when I'm doing my preparations, and then I stare at them out of the blue over here. I think, ugh, why did I forget to look at that? Now it will all be revealed that I am a fraud and I actually have to prepare for these shows. I can't tell you off the top of my head. But let's get to the first question. See what Panurge has in mind. He says, hey Jan, I played the Ragozin as black. d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop b4. So really enjoyed your video series on the Vienna, which overlaps with my repertoire in some lines. I like the Ragozin. And, well, I shouldn't say it because probably I won't do it. But I've always thought that the Vienna is the most shaky part of my video series, and I've sympathized with giving the Ragozin a long, hard look one day. But currently I'm not an expert. Anyway, back to Panurge's question. In one of the Vienna main lines, you give after bishop g5, dc, e4, c5 as your recommendation. I'm wondering though whether you think there's anything wrong with b5, trying to hold on to the pawn. I do think so. And for example, if white plays a la Botvinnik Semislav with e5, h6, and so on, not the most relevant line. Thanks. So let's get into it. I'm gonna forget, just so you know, to switch this board around once in a while as well. And normally I also have to get back from the previous position I was looking at to the starting position. So it will be a messy process. But I do know the answer to Mr. Panurge's question. That's the good news. So Vienna. And here c5 is my recommendation. But after b5, that is what the question was about. Black is trying to hang on to the pawn on c4. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. It had a pretty high-level refutation in a game, Kramnik versus Carlsen, and people haven't really touched it since. a4 is a critical move. Here, the best black can do is to play the move c5, but then after a takes b5, black will end up a pawn down, not a pawn up. So my best guess is Panurge is asking about the line with c6 here. And that doesn't quite work because of e5, h6. ef6. This is the key, having provoked c6. hg, fg, rook g8, g3 is strongest. h4 is also not bad, but g3 is strongest. And long story short, all the lines are good for white. I once had this in a tournament game against Ivanchuk. I think he played g4 here against me. But the most critical is bishop b7, bishop g2, c5, castles, and now g4. And here, Kramnik played this piece sacrifice, a takes b5, which if you feed it to a computer of your choice, it will show you that white is winning here. Actually, this is the game, takes, knight d7, and I believe Kramnik went d takes c5, which is also strong. But computers say rook fd1, even stronger. Oof, studio's collapsing, but I'm used to that. The show must go on. Rook fd1 wins here for white. So, no. These lines with b5, a4, c6, trying to hang on to the pawn, do not work. Sorry, my dear friend. Let's go to the next question, if we have another one. Else we'd be done. Let's go home. But I have a feeling there is literally 100 yet to come. Grandmaster Passion is asking what player should one study to understand the d5 symmetrical English for black, and what to do about the line knight f3, knight f6, c4, c5, knight c3, d5, cd5, knight d5, ed, knight c3, bc, g6, favored by Aronian. I'm not really a study player X or Y type of guy if I'm interested in a position. And my best guess is that the position we're talking about is this one. After 3d5, I normally just, sort it and look at who the strongest players from the black side were. In this case, I think Nepomniachtchi, all the Grünfeld guys, Nepomniachtchi and MVL and Svedler all had relevant games. So, study those. And part 2, Levon played this line twice, right? In the Sinquefield Cup. Maybe he even played it in the Rapid and Blitz, the St. Louis thingy as well. I'm not quite sure what your question is. What about it? Was it specifically bishop e2 or... I wish I could remember stuff I read out. Oh no, just 7h4. Yeah, it's interesting positions. Full of fight. In the first game, Aronian played this goofy idea, bishop a3, queen a5, rook h4, which is very cute. My computer tells me that Nepomniachtchi's move bishop d7 was fine, and after queen b3, one should just go rook to b8, which seems to equalize. Rook a4, queen c7, bishop c5, knight a5 being a key tactic, attacking both these pieces. Therefore, there was a bit more of a one-off, and after that, Aronian started playing bishop to e2, when my computer says e5 is an interesting move, doesn't it? Yeah, e5 looks a bit anti-positional, blocking our own bishop, and making white play e4. But black has a very nice grip on the center here. The white knight is far away from the d5 square. So I'm curious if anybody is gonna give that an outing in the near or distant future. If not, they might not. Thank you for your question, Grandmaster Passion. Who else is asking questions? Sometimes they ask too many questions, don't they? Magma Leader Maxi. What does that stand for? Magma Leader? What's magma? The stuff from volcanoes? I don't know. Anyway, he says, thank you for doing this, Jan. You're welcome, Magma Leader Maxi. MLM. You are one of the best reasons to go premium here on Chess24. Thank you so much. I have been learning the old Indian as black and have been playing this fun line with d4, knight f6, c4, d6, knight c3, e5, knight f3, e4, knight d2. Is it fun? It looks fairly horrible to me, I'll be honest. I have been putting most of my energy into 5 queen e7 because it's a bit easier to learn than bishop f5. But have been having troubles in my analysis after g3, c6, bishop g2, d5, takes, f3, where white seems to get an easy and dangerous initiative. Is there a better way to handle this line? Or should I suck it up and try analyzing bishop f5 more deeply? Thank you in advance for your insight. Can I go with option C and say, don't play that line? It does not look very logical at all, really. And the computer also really dislikes it. So I have a feeling you should drop that line altogether. Anyway, it does occur after d4, knight f6, c4, d6, knight c3, e5, knight f3. So far, yeah, I'm already not a fan of 2d6, but here, knight bd7, you can play and you get some old Indian, King's Indian kind of thing. At e4, you already played d6, and this pawn will need help from his brother on the d file, and this will take too long here. So after e4, knight d2, looks fairly grim to me. No matter what you do, you already gave a line that could cause troubles after queen e7. Queen c2 followed by f3 looks interesting as well. But yeah, the line you gave also looks good for white, which is not surprising really. White is just controls the center and has a lead in development. So yeah, that looks bad. And bishop f5 also looks bad to me. Let's say queen b3, probably have to go queen c8. Once again g3. I'm not feeling it. Like, I like that you're doing your own research and you're trying to find less well-trodden path. But this line just doesn't look logical to send this pawn alone into no man's land, where it will either be chased down by the white pieces or white will generate an initiative while attacking it. I'm not a fan. Sorry, my MLM. Frank Steinbakers, Candidate Master, CM, says, Dear Jan, is there a way white, I'm assuming, can get an advantage in the next variation of the Rossolimo? Long variation, let's put it on the board. If we manage to do so. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6. No, that was, how does this go? Here. I've seen it's sort of a trendy line. It's very confusing. They used to play this intending to go f6, knight f7, and white is a bit better. But now they've started to play this more aggressive way with f5 very early. e5 is logical, knight to f7, d3, rook b8. All of this was included in Frank's line. Here he gave knight bd2, which I'm not a fan of. As far as I understand, white should try to control this e5 outpost and not have it undermined with d6 going for e6. So I would say white should play b3 here. And after d6, have the option of bishop f4. Now that his pawn on b2 is no longer hanging. I'm guessing that was the idea of rook b8. Try to fight for that outpost. I'm not sure if white is significantly better here, but that looks like a more harmonious way to me to play this position. And after knight d2, d6, e6, I can't say I've studied this in great detail, but it looks to me that both knight e5 or the crazier looking knight to h8 are quite playable for black. So I have a feeling if white has to go for this e6, something's gone wrong. And yeah, I would much rather play either b3, bishop f4, or maybe knight a3, keeping options open. And then after d6, think about bishop f4 as well. Rook b2, knight c4. So I'm hoping that helps. Disclaimer, not an expert. Blah, blah, blah. That disclaimer I could give in any line. Formless. FIDE Master. Hi Jan. Hi Formless. I recently came across a problem in the mainline Italian as seen in Kayakin Lake Wangliam from the St. Louis Blitz event. Yeah, we've seen plenty Italians. And the opening clinic, you guys are always up to date with your questions, so this time around we have quite a few Giocopiano questions. Let's see what Formless is up to. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. I'll put it on the board in a minute. Castles, knight f6, d3, castles, h3, d6, c3, knight e7, and so on and so forth, e5, knight h5. Seems that black was able to equalize easily by skipping a6 and bishop a7, saving 2 tempi and playing quickly in the center. I was not able to find an improvement in this line until I found the game So Kayakin from Norway Chess 2017, where the bishop was forced to a7 and black was not in time to equalize in the center. That game went a4, a6, c3, d6, and so on and so forth. White was able to create some pressure. Is the Lê Quang treatment a refutation to 6h3? And if so, why do the world's best players keep playing this move order? Thank you for your great work, and sorry to bore you with a question on Italian move orders. Not boring at all, this is very much my world. So I'm sorry to bore the viewers with my ramblings about it, but I've been thinking about stuff like this, so not at all bored. I'm not sure under which move order I have it here, but after d3 castles, here white is at a crossroads. One thing I believe, I'm not sure this is a majority opinion, but I believe that after c3, d5 is fine for black. Therefore, white normally tries to play moves against which d5 doesn't work as well. a4, here d5 is not a good move as far as I know, and I've tried to make this work. This is not great for black. Therefore, after a4 we know d5 doesn't work, and h3 was a move where white maybe he doesn't want to commit to a4, but he wants to go c3, bishop b3 later, and here d5, I've played d5 here once, is playable, but it has its own set of problems. After ed knight d5, rook e1, the position gets quite complicated. So rightly, you've been wondering, and I've also been wondering, can black exploit this h3 move by doing something clever like delaying a6, bishop a7? And I think you're right on this one. After d6, c3, knight to e7, black, has not really wasted time, wasted quote unquote, on these bishop maneuvers. And with the pawn on h3, this very quick d4 business has lost a bit of its punch. So I basically agree with your conclusion that against h3, this looks fine for me. I can't say I've spent a lot of time on it, but it looks like a better version for black than any of the other lines where the a pawn moved. So from a white point of view, or from a black point of view, the biggest headache remains the move a4. I've looked at all kinds of things here, a5 or a6 or a6 followed by d5, but it does seem like the ball is still, I don't know if it's really in black's court, but here the same maneuver, this knight e7, knight g6, doesn't seem to work as well. Therefore, in this position, well, this is where the current hot theoretical debates are ongoing. b5 is the trendy move, b5, bishop b3, or bishop a2. But this still looks like white's best bet for an opening advantage. And yeah, I agree with your point, and I slightly disagree that the world's best players keep doing this. I believe a4 is a much more popular move than h3, is it not? Anyway, those are interesting insights from Formless, and I also agree with the conclusion. So thanks for the question, Mr. Fiedemeister Formless. Fiedemaster, I believe is what they say. Spills, our old friend Spills with 3 Z's. Says, hi Jan, and congratulations on your new career as a high-level NBA trade analyst. I wish my 15 minutes of NBA fame have long gone. I'm back to chess opening questions. I seem to reach the position in the diagram quite frequently due to some specialized move orders I like to employ. Is it that specialist, Spills? d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, e3? It's quite common. Anyway, and instead of the normal 6d5 for white, I was toying with the idea of playing 6d takes c5 with a position that sort of reminds me of a Reti opening with colors reversed. Fair enough. Question, do you see this as an interesting dynamic position with chances for white to press a little, or am I just losing my opening advantage with nothing much to show for it? Can I once again choose like some middle ground? I don't think white is better after dc5 really, but it also doesn't strike me as ridiculous. Against certain opponents, especially some dynamic move-by-move Grunfeld players, you can play that, but objectively I would be surprised if white was really better there. Still, I'd be afraid of d5 here on the black side, but that's because of my general dislike of all things Benoni from the black side. So dc5, yeah, I don't think white is better after either knight a6 or knight to e4, intending to take back with this guy. But knight a6 is more normal. The castle's knight c5. He says you should go b4. Knight c4, bishop b2, whatever, d6 or b6. Yeah, I don't think it's anything special, and this knight is kind of too active, so you have to exchange it, and then black will find enough space for his pieces. But it's a playable, quietish position. I'd be happier to get this position with black, where I feel like we've equalized effortlessly. With black, such things normally feel better. If you go b5, bishop b7, you're already equal. But yeah, playable but equal. I'd prefer d5. Abni. Hi Jan, what is your opinion of the novel idea and the Grunfeld played by Li Chao versus Boris Gelfand in the 2016 Tal Memorial? The line follows. Long line. Do you think it's a playable game for black, or is he giving up too much? All these either-or questions. I know he won this game. He won his game, but that is a small sample size. I do agree with that. I remember looking at that at the time it was played, or after it was played. I did not come to a very clear conclusion then, and I still haven't. But if you put me on the spot, then I would say playable. One thing I've never been clear about is in this position. Let's briefly click through how we get here. Grunfeld. In this position, bishop g5 is a move, right? When, well, I think there's some Svidler game maybe where he sacrifices queen and held. But this stuff I'd be a bit uncomfortable with as black. Probably you can hold, but I would not be dreaming of this line. So you need an idea against bishop g5 as well. Against rook d1, which was your question. This is, yeah. This is the line, right? Rook a1, knight e8, and then the game bishop f4 was played. My computer also mentioned some weirdness like rook d1, bishop c2, here. It's not very straightforward compensation. It really depends on move-by-move tactics, like here, bishop f8, and then you hope to be in time to jump around. But it does seem to work. Like queen c5, rook c8. And it seemed like black very much move-by-move wise gets enough compensation, and I haven't seen that line played very often at top level since. So my opinion is, seems to work, and I'm still not sure what black should do against bishop g5 instead of rook to d1. Do we have more questions? Ooh, long question by the Saint, or the SNT. Hi Jan, first of all, I'd like to apologize for any grammatical mistake. English is not my first language. Your English sounds excellent to me, but it's not my first language either, so we might both be wrong. I like to play the Italian as white, and in a recent tournament I faced the idea of playing with h6 and g5 twice. Whoa. One of the games went like this. e4, e5, c3, g5. That game I got a good position by playing like this. Bishop e3, bishop g7, knight b2, castles d4. And then there's another line with a6, bishop a7, knight b2, h6, rook e1, g5. Yeah, those ideas, they're not as dumb as they look. I've looked at these things in my sometimes slightly desperate efforts to make something happen on the black side of the Italian. So, oops. The first line is this, d3, h6. I've played this in tournament games, but after d6, c3, yeah, g5 doesn't make that much sense to me here. It's kind of playable, but I think g6 is just a better move here. So I've never really taken this g5 seriously. You said you went bishop e3. Bishop e3 I'm not so sure about either. It's a bit of a strange square for the bishop. I'd probably play some a4, more standard Italian space grabbery. Anyway, that line didn't bother you that much, but this one did. First of all, your line starts with bishop to b3 here, right? Bishop b3, bishop a7, knight b2, h6, rook e1, g5. And this is surprisingly playable. I believe Vitugov played it against Elizabeth Peets, trying to spice things up. And you can go d4 here, but it does get very messy. I think you pointed that out as well. So if you really want to avoid this, you could and should, in my opinion, join the bandwagon of people playing the Italian nowadays that don't play bishop b3 anymore, but go a4 as the standard setup on the queen side. Go a4, clearing this a2 square for the bishop. And the good news is you no longer really have to worry about this h6 g5 plan. Because if black does it here with the pawn on a4 instead of the bishop on b3, then white is very quick, starting an initiative on the queen side by playing b4, playing to push b5 or knight b3 followed by b5. And in this position, as far as I can tell, white has the initiative and should be in good shape. So while I'm not saying that this is like this bishop b3 line is like a reason to lose a lot of sleep in top level games. Pretty much everybody still castles here. I'm aware that g5 is less ridiculous than it looks, and I can't tell you a clear refutation of it. So if it bothers you, and also as a general note, I believe you should join team a4 instead of team bishop b3. Thanks for the question, Mr. The Saint. Turfan Fragment is asking, are there any lines in the Sicilian where black commonly castles queenside? The answer is not that I know of. Wouldn't be very logical, right? You play c5, put your pawn out there on c5, and then you go for queenside castles after you've weakened that shelter. And there's also a lot of pieces that you would have to get out of the way. So, no, I'm not aware of many lines in the Sicilian where black regularly, or any lines where black regularly castles queenside. I'm sure it can happen in one line or two, like whatever. Stuff like this I've seen. Bishop f5, let's say. Knight a3 takes, knight b5. Here we castle queenside, and we're winning too. So this is the dream. But a lot of things had to happen. No lines where black castles queenside regularly. I'm sorry. Chess Costly is saying, hi Jan, I recently played a regional chess tournament. Against one defer, I prefer to play the Nimzo, and I thank you and Paco very much. You're very welcome, looks like Chess Costly watched Paco's and my video series on the Nimzo Indian. He says, after d4, knight f6, c4, e6, however, I played the Benoni. 3 c5, d5, and long line, we can put it on the board. My conclusions are that one can learn the opening by heart until move rook e8, but there are lots of possibilities how the game could proceed. 9 bishop f4, 992, something like e4 and f4, and so on. I don't have a concrete question, but can you give me any replies to my thoughts? Thanks a lot, Jan. Yeah, I'm confused too. Looks like you're doing fine, but since you don't have a question, it's hard for me to give a reply. You know how this question-reply dynamic works. So what can I tell you about your thoughts? Do you want to put your game on the screen? Is that what we can do that? Other than that, yeah, I've never been a big Benoni guy, but it makes most sense to me after white plays g3, because this bishop just looks kind of silly on g2. So yeah, I kind of understand that you would wanna go for it here to get a more dynamic position. I've dabbled with this idea myself, and you're saying you can memorize it till here, and now it gets more messy. Which, yeah, nowadays bishop f4 seems to be what everybody's doing, so probably you wanna have a look at some of the lines here. Maybe knight e4, I believe this is the hotly debated line, right? And the other, yeah, you can probably play according to feel I don't know any theory here either, so I'll just, put the position you gave us on the board. But black seems to be doing okay. And yeah, what can I say? Kudos for getting the good position. And best of luck with your career as a Benoni/Nimzo player. The old bum is saying, hello Jan, I like your content. Thank you, the old bum. In the position after d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, e3 castles, bishop d3, c5, knight f3, d5 castles, dc, bishop c4, cd, ed. You recommend b6 in your Nimzo Indian video. Yep, I would love to take credit for it, but it's called the Karpov system. It's fairly well established these days. I've always played bishop c3, bc, queen c7, queen e2, b6 in that position because of a recommendation in some old book or another. Can you convince me to follow your moves? Thanks, bum. No, I don't want to talk you out of your old book's wisdom. So it's very much up to you. All I can do is give what I think is best, and then you can make the choice. I won't fight to convince you of my convictions. I don't feel that strongly about the validity of my opinions. Still, my line, and I don't really mean my line, the Karpov variation, the line that pretty much everybody plays here, is superior to bishop takes c3 first for fairly obvious reasons. Like bishop takes c3 does not run away. And you can do it whenever you like, but you might not have to do it immediately. While your line has the problem that here, after bishop a3, rook to d8, knight to e5, you're in trouble. You're in real deep trouble. f4, f5 is looming, and you might have to call 911 to get out of it. Knight e5, knight d5, still f4. Yeah, this will not be fun for black. So you choose. But I mean no disrespect to your old book, which I have not read. Probably they did not have a powerful engine at their disposal. Maybe. I don't know. That's all I had to say. I hope I won the fight for your affection, the old bum. Pramod NVS. Oh, did I forget to look at Pramod's question? Oh no, I would never do that. He's saying, hello Jan, I hope you're impressed with this year's Game of Thrones and where it is heading. No, I hated this year's season. Like, I won't spoil it, but it annoyed me greatly, and it made me feel like Benioff and Weiss are really mentally onto the next project and they want to wrap it up. A lot of stuff that did not make sense to me. And yeah, big winner, George R.R. Martin. Because now they're out of book, literally, which is what this show is about. Let's avoid getting out of book like it happened to Benioff and Weiss. Because then you have to make up your own stuff. And you can go wrong when you make up your own stuff. Like Season 7 of Game of Thrones. I would like to know why Marvel Defenders is a decent watch too, is what Pramod's saying. I tried watching like the first episode. Couldn't hang in there, but I might give it another shot. I would like to know why in the line of Caro-Kann, e4, c6, knight f3, d5, knight c3. My apologies. Is considered inaccurate when in the main line it's considered an obvious continuation. Here instead knight f6 and bishop g4 are considered better moves. Have you considered using the word considered more? Thanks. What's your prediction for the upcoming World Cup, by the way? I might do a video with all my predictions. Like we have this stuff where you can make predictions for the whole tree. I've been looking at it. I might do a video before it starts. But let's answer Pramod's question. First of all, we should compliment Pramod for asking question with a slightly smaller scale than his usual. Can you explain the plans for both sides in this random thing? So, Pramod. Here, the two knights, which is a system I like for white. Knight f3, knight c3. Here, d, e, knight e4 does not have as good a reputation. And the point is that if you play bishop f5, like you would normally play in the main line with the pawn on d4 instead of knight on f3, Here after knight to g3, bishop g6 is a bit of a mistake, because white already has this jumpy knight, and he can punish black here by going h4, h6, knight to e5, targeting the bishop, bishop h7, queen to h5, g6. Bishop c4 is cute here, but queen to f3 is even more ruthless. Knight f6, queen b3, queen d5, queen b7, queen e5, bishop e2. And white wins. You don't need to remember that whole line. As a rule of thumb, if black ends up with the bishop on h7 and pawn on g6 early on in the opening, something has gone wrong. Now, of course, you don't have to play like that, like in this position. Bishop g4 is a better move, but white still gets the two bishops and probably a slight advantage after h3. While in the main line, quote-unquote, after d4 takes, bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6, h4, h6, there's obviously none of this knight e5, queen h5 business. Therefore, that is playable for black here. Thank you for your question. And the old bum has added a diagram. Thank you, old bum. We've been here. Gustav Chatterjee is number 1, is asking, hey Jan, I played the English for a long time, but recently I have been facing many problems with it. So sorry to hear that. Particularly I face problems against this setup. Usually against the King's Indian setups I delay castling and play something like rook b1 and b4. But here, since there's no knight on c6, it wouldn't make much sense. Other plans like e4 and e3 are good too, but I don't really play them much. So what do you recommend here? Usually I go e3 setups against f5, e4 setup once black goes c6, and b4, b5 in the main King's Indian. But here I'm sort of in Zugzwang, as whatever plan I play, black can choose a good setup against it. Regards from India. I see. Don't really know anything about that. I kind of hear the point. It looked like black got a good version without making a lot of concessions. And normally you don't want black to do that, right? Like if you, I'm not sure what your move order of choice is, but if you start with knight c3 here, how would black get that position? He goes d6 or g6. g6, d4 looks good for white already. d6, you could make a case for d4, even though this is less clear here. ed4 is very playable. So g3, g6. Here, once again, I'd be tempted to play d4. Fairly tempted. I believe that's why they normally start going knight c6. Start by playing knight c6. Because in these positions, I just try to punish them earlier by playing d4. Then again, I'm more of a d4 friend to begin with, and if your move order is relying on going to g3, not to knight c3, which it shouldn't, by the way, because here after g3 there's c6, then yeah, things might be less clear. As to answer your question, I do not have the slightest idea. I hear the logic. This looks like a very flexible setup for black, and I'm not sure what I'd be doing either. Probably d3 to begin with, to see what you can do next, what black will do next. But I kind of understand this is not ideal. I'm reading, stream is down. That would mean I might have to go on a brief break and get it up and running. Therefore, I hope you guys enjoyed part number 1 of this opening clinic, and after a very brief break, we'll be back with part number 2. Will I get coffee during the break? Probably will. See you guys soon. Hello everybody and welcome back to part number 2 of Jan's opening clinic number, I don't know, number 17? Or shall we call this second part number 18? That way it looks like I'm more productive, right? But I would have to change the number, which would be a lot of work. The number on the screen, that is. Because here it says 17 still. We were talking about the English. I could not really answer the question because I don't know any better except for, yeah, I would go knight c3, and then if they go g6, you go d4. Or there are many sins. Or if they go d6, you can go g3, g6, d4. And by this move order, yeah, you make it tough for black to play without knight to c6. I hope that helps. If it doesn't, I feel your pain. Maybe start playing moves that don't allow the black pawn into the center so early. But honestly, I just don't know the answer. I have never gotten any of those. And Duke Crusher says, we left off at Pramod's question, then everything is safe, because what matters most to me is that I do answer Pramod's question. If there's 2 questions that you didn't catch on the stream, will all be on YouTube once we're done here, so you can catch up and in case you missed something. Let's get to the next question. K Lamar 74 says, hi Jan, after d4, knight f6, c4, c5, the irritating move is 3 knight f3 that you enjoy so much and we Banco Benoni players hate. Yeah, probably says more about me than about you, that I enjoy stuff other people hate. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Can this be met directly with c takes d4, knight takes d4, d5? MVL did this recently, and playing white, the great Anand was unable to do anything else than apply some pressure and change all pieces to a draw. Or better, e6, knight c3, cd, knight d4, d5. The idea is to not let white play g3, bishop g2 and get the better bishop, g2 versus c8 and space advantage. So the idea is trying not to be worse. Thanks, K Lamar 74. Yeah, that's playable. Let's see under which move order we filed that. I'm not sure. But this d5 thingy, I don't think this MVL game is a particularly good role model, right? Because he got into trouble against Vishy. As you said, Vishy applied some pressure and then MVL equalized, or survived, let's call it. But the position that MVL got out of the opening, I don't think this is the position you want to get out of the opening with black. White is better here. And MVL had to suffer. So, yeah, this d5 idea, I'm not that sold on. Especially this knight b4 move. I always thought knight to f6 was a more critical move here. When white is still a little better after bishop b5 check. But I always thought this was a sterner test. The other line you're mentioning is better in my opinion. e6, of course you could think about g3 here, which has its own set of problems after d5 or queen c7. Or a6 followed by queen c7, but it's certainly a move. And knight c3, d5, yeah, I had this position recently, didn't I? I'm talking to myself, I don't expect you to know all my games. I think I played bishop f4 here recently. Another logical try is cd, knight d5, bishop d2. Which is not supposed to be very much, but I once lost this as well to Wang Hao. Has some venom too. I play bishop f4 when black is supposed to equalize after knight c6. But still, yeah, hopefully not all that trivial, these e3, bishop b4 lines. But, to answer your question, yeah, d5 I have my doubts about, e6 followed by d5 I believe is a very, very playable line. Knight c6, still the main move here, but d5 certainly playable as well. Hope that helps, or I hope it doesn't help too much. I don't know. I want to keep doing this. F. Bardamu is asking, hello Jan, what do you recommend for black to play against the Ruy-Lopez exchange variation? I know there are many lines that equalize, but which one is best according to you? And what line is best for playing for a win? Thanks for doing this, kind regards. So you know there's many lines that equalize. I'm I never know that. And yeah, I'm slightly surprised that no one seems to be playing the exchange rule Lopez anymore. I always thought it was sort of a serious line. I don't really know what I would recommend. Like, I gave Queen f6 in the old days, which, yeah, you don't see very often anymore. But I still think that's an interesting move. I think Bishop d6, and I to just play this is interesting. I'm just mainly just giving the line. But I think in order to play for a win, Knight e7 is interesting, because if White picks up the gauntlet, goes Knight e5, Queen d4, things can become quite sharp. But now, yeah, I'm just reciting the first two moves of everything. Bishop g4 is also fine. I'm not sure I'm helping. That's because I don't really know. Like, all the lines are playable, but it's nothing where I've ever felt particularly comfortable with black either. Or where I think, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to do this every game. So if you put me on the spot, I would say Bishop d6. No, see, I'm changing my mind mid-sentence. Bishop g4 in order to be safe, and Knight e7 in order to get something complicated. But really, it depends. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer, because I don't know. It's one of those where it doesn't make sense for White to play it, because you gotta be ready for Queen d6, Queen f6, Bishop e7, Bishop d6, Bishop e6, f6, Bishop g4, Knight e7. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some moves, which are all more or less equalized. And with black, it's also, yeah, doesn't make sense to spend that much time on it, because you never get it. And if you do, you have a choice between all these moves. But it doesn't mean that it's not annoying. So I kind of hear you. And I'm sorry for the cop-out answer. Yeah. Do what you like. Oh, one line that I used to play. Might be slightly less correct than the others, but it's more fun. You can go for this. How does this go? Queen h4. Queen f3, f6. And in order to play for a win, it's a very messy position. So that's an option. Ilya Joker, FIDE Master, is saying, "Hi Jan. Lately I've faced d4, d5, c4, e6 and f3, a6 a few times and haven't achieved anything special from the opening. So my question is, where should I look for an edge in this variation? Thanks a lot, and do opening clinics more often. I really enjoy watching them. I don't enjoy doing them that much. Such a grind. But thanks anyway, Mr. Ilya." So d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, a6. Yeah, one of these moves that not as dumb as it looks, and it's gotten in one form or the other bit of a high level following recently, right? I mean, Magnus played this in different move orders, and a bunch of guys have also started playing knight f6, knight c3, a6 here. So it's getting more popular. General a6 is a useful move, of course, for all kinds of endeavors. I believe the critical test here has to be the move c takes d5. E takes d5, knight to c3. I can't really say that anything else convinces me greatly. Here black has a choice between knight f6 and c6. c6, there was recently a game, Svane against Vallejo or something, that looked quite nice for white. c6, I believe, is in trouble. Therefore, knight to f6, transposing to this business, seems logical. And here, yeah, I don't have anything new to add. Bishop g5 or bishop f4 are the two main moves. Queen b3 has recently also gotten a following. All these moves, I believe white is slightly better, but black gets a playable position. And bishop g5. They do this bishop e6, e3, knight bd7. And here, me, because I'm a nit, and I love my bishops, I will play h3, not bishop d3. That they've been playing when you get this weird stuff, like something like this. This has been a line where, yeah, I wouldn't want to give this bishop, so I'd probably go h3. But I can't really say that this is winning. It's just, yeah, Slightly better for white, I would guess. Yeah. Crazy world we're living in. Black can get away with the move 3a6 or 4a6 in a regular Queen's Gambit declined. But such are the times. Carlos M.F. Santos is asking, hi Jan, one of the earlier ideas to avoid the Berlin as white was simply e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, knight f6, 4, queen e2. Hu Yifan, Hare Krishna, Short Adams. Wow, big list of testimonials you got there. Artemiev, Gashimov have played this. Mainline could go as bishop c5, c3 castles, d3, h6, knight bd2, d6, castles, knight e7, d4. As in Hu Yifan, Kramnik, 2015. I understand it's riskier than 4d3 or something of that type to avoid knight takes e4. However, it seems to keep the tension of the closed Ruy Lopez for longer, if that's white's goal. Do you have an opinion on this for queen e2? It appears not to have been played in 2017 at the top level. Has it been refuted? Thanks, Carlos. I would not talk in such absolute terms, but yeah, for queen e2, it's not a very logical move. That's my beef with it. Like, d3 just seems to be superior to 4 queen e2 based on logic alone, because in the line you gave as the main line, and in all lines as far as I'm aware, white cannot really do without playing d3, so you have gained nothing and you've committed your queen to e2 already, which is not the best square. Like, this is the line you gave, right? Knight e7, and here your queen really is not particularly well placed on this e4 square, and this is this game. Hu Yifan Kramnik, right? Which Kramnik I believe won, and just looks perfectly fine for black. Well, if we compare it with the d3 main lines, d3, bishop c5, c3, castles, d6. Few people would dream of going for queen e2 in this position, and instead you would play a more useful move like knight bd2 or rook to e1. And I'm not saying it's going to be a picnic to get an opening advantage here, but at least you have a chance, while with the queen on e2, you really don't. So I understand the desire to get people out of the book while keeping pieces on the board. But yeah, queen e2 does not strike me as a very critical test. Of course you can play like that, then play c3, d3. You're not worse or anything, but it would not strike fear in your opponent's hearts either. Duke Crusher is saying, hi Jan, after d4, knight f6, bishop f4, c5, e3, queen b6, knight c3, queen b2, knight b5, knight d5. Is there any good way for white to play for a win? Or do I just have to repeat as white with rook b1, queen a2, rook a1, queen b2? How can I avoid this as white? You are right, and you can avoid this as white as well, but you have to deviate. I think e3 is not the critical test. But let's first look at your line. e3, queen b6, knight c3, queen takes b2. Here, if you go knight b5, it is indeed a forced draw after knight d5. This has been known for some time. There are different ways to make the forced draw, and you can maybe think about a3 here, but I don't think white is better. So yeah, once you made it here, it's supposed to be just a draw. In order to avoid this, you can play knight ge2, which is a move Grishuk played once. It's a little speculative. How do you pronounce that word? Speculative or speculative? Or none of the above. Get rid of your horrible German accent. Anyway, this is sort of playable, but I don't really like it. Even though it could be some fun lines like queen a3, you go g4, and hope for the best. I'm sure Rapport would feel very much at home here. But I believe that after c5, it's more critical to move your d-pawn. Either take on c5, that's what Levon Aronian did recently against Kasparov, when the game went something weird, like here, right? And I thought Levon was a little better. Then he bungled, or he made a mistake early on, but I thought he got a good position out of the opening. Of course, there's other lines. DC, there's knight a6 and whatnot. And I always thought that d5 was the most critical, which is why I followed by c5 with black. So yeah, after c5, e3, queen b6, as far as I know, white doesn't have anything better, but I would try d5 or dc5 here. What else is going on? Damn it, somebody, no. Floris, number 12. I'm so uneducated. I must find out who Floris the 12th is. Or maybe it's just his name. Can't find anything. Anyway, moving on. Hi Jan, against the Mora Gambit, I'm playing knight f6 to get an Alapine structure. Yeah, I've done that. Unfortunately, I'm having a bit of a problem with this opening choice because it is a bit passive. Then do something else. Take the pawn, for example. That's less passive. A lot of the times, white can simply play things like bishop d3 and get an attack on the king side. I'm using a setup like in the diagram with comes from and so on and so forth. And then the bishop could go to b7 or d7. As the pawn structure is already pointing towards the king side. Yeah, it is. It is obvious white would somehow try to attack it. The main question is how to play around white's plans in these kinds of structures. One can just remember moves, but plans are a more convenient means of improving. You've come to the wrong place. I'm all about remembering moves. I never know how to deal with this plan situation because they make a different move and all the plans are out of the window. So I'm not sure if I can hang on help you there. Let's put it on the board though. I do have a thought or two. First of all, this might not be a plan, but I would not go knight c6 here. I would go bishop e7, castles, castles, which is a lot more flexible because in many lines, you will not want to put your knight on c6 so quickly, but instead you want to go bishop d7, bishop to c6, or you want to go b6, followed by bishop b7. And then this knight on c6 could be standing in the way. It could want to go to d7. And bottom line, yeah, don't commit to knight c6 so early if you don't have to. Once you have, then it really depends on white's next move. Like I think bishop d2 is a popular move here to go knight c3. If they go knight c3, this is a line from the old days. You're supposed to be okay, right? Is this how they play? I know they go queen e2 first, I guess. I don't know what people do. Like something like this. This looks vaguely familiar. And black was supposed to be fine, as far as I know. But it is a little scary, I'll admit. So, sorry, I don't have plans for you. Delay knight c6, that would be my plan. And other than that, in this position, white has so many different options. That's hard for me to speak in general terms like castle, go knight a5, bishop d7, bishop c6. Don't get mated. Yeah. But yeah, delay knight c6 and or think about knight b6, which is another respectable move here, in order to make it a little harder for white to get all of his dreams. Because here, for example, you can play moves like knight to a6 and jump around. That's another option you might want to contemplate. Stream is stuttering again? What's going on today? Do we need to move it on to part 3 already? More streaming problems. The last couple days, I'm never sure what's happening. Internet is as powerful as never. So let's hope it passes while I zip a little coffee. Aristide is asking, hi Jan, what's your opinion about the Najdorf with 6a3? It has been played by both Kayakin and Carlsen in serious games in Vike this year, I'm aware, but doesn't seem to have been used at top level anymore since then. Any idea why? Did you think 6a3 would be here to stay? It does not strike me as a very logical move, frankly. There was this period of craze where, people started trying out all kinds of new, never seen before, but still legal moves against the Najdorf. Like knight to b3 had its moment. Then h4 is something people started doing. And a3 was also featured during that time. It makes some sense. The big point is after e6 you want to go g4 and a3. You could argue it's quite useful to stop b5, b4. I believe none other than the famous attacking player Peter Heine Nielsen used this a3, e6, g4 in a game. But I think e5, as was played in the Kayakin and the Carlsen game, should be alright. This knight f5, bishop f5, ef d5. I don't know, how does it 5, bishop g5 takes ef and d4. I can't remember a thing. How do they do this? d5, bishop g5. You go d4 here. My apologies. Now I got bishop f6 and gf6. Wojtaszek played queen f6, but gf6 seemed to lead to, at the very least, a playable position for black. Knight a2, bishop f5 takes queen d5. That's what the computer was spitting out. So not a surprise they would not repeat that every game at the highest level. Well, knight f3, I think that's what Kayakin did. Did not strike fear in people's heart either. And I'm always confused if white makes a random move like a3. Why black can't transpose to the Dragendorf and now play g6, bishop g7. Not saying black is better or anything, but g6 strikes me as a very logical reaction. Because white no longer can really play any of the sharpish lines he would go against the dragon. With the pawn on a3. So yeah, I'm not particularly surprised a3 has not become a staple. And bishop g5 and h3 to a lesser extent still dominate the discussions. But it's a cute little move, so if you want to play it, knock yourself out. Then we have Gilshi saying, I think Shakhmatyarov will be first or second. He has kept a low profile recently and has probably put a lot of work in preparing for this tournament. Yeah, Mamedyarov been doing well recently. He could be devastating with white pieces as usual and equalizing with black. That sounds like a good strategy. At 2797 is just short of 2800 elite, which I expect him to break into at this event. I guess Gilshi wants to share his World Cup predictions with all of us. Thanks, Gilshi. Let's see. I mentioned I still have to go through the whole list and make my predictions. Gilshi believes in Shakhmatyarov. Bram van Einaten is saying, Dear Jan, when facing the Budapest Gambit, I often play d4, knight f6, c4, e5, d, e, knight g4, bishop f4, knight c6, knight f3, bishop b4 check, knight b2, queen e7, e3, knight e5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e2, castles, castles. Can you recommend a more ambitious or sharper line for white against the Budapest Gambit? I don't feel like I punish my opponents often enough for playing gambits. Nah, I'm sorry, Bram. I think you already have the best line there is. And all my dreams are made of... I have very small dreams. Are made of getting such a position out of the opening. So I don't understand what you're complaining about. This is as good as it gets black normally takes on d2, right? And you have the two bishops for free and the slightly better pawn structure. It's just a fantastic outcome of the opening. And that is very much good enough for when facing the Budapest Gambit, which is one of the better gambits. It's not like there is a clear-cut refutation. But the problem is that black is just slightly worse against all these natural moves. I'm aware black can start with d6 here, he doesn't have to take, and knight b continues. But black is just a little worse in all the lines. And you shouldn't have this mindset, my opponent played a gambit, I must punish him. You should have this mindset, oh thank you sir, now I don't have to work for my opening advantage, I'll just play all these normal moves and get a better position. So, no, I don't have anything better, because I would do the same thing with a smile on my face every game. Probably not a big smile. I'd still be my usually self-loathing me. Self-loathing self? But no, this line is fine. Galactic is saying, hi Jan, during my last tournament I was black and my opponent played this line. Long Nimzo business. I honestly thought my opponent played too fast and just blundered the d4 pawn, but after thinking for a long time I realized white has some compensation. I played cd knight d4, bishop b2, e5, knight c6, e5 squared me, queen h5, mistake, black was slightly better. Game finally ended in draw. In your video series you covered 11 f4 but not knight g3. I saw the most played move is knight a5. Is the best answer. What would you do? Thanks a lot. I don't know, like I probably never lost a lot of sleep over that line either, because the only question really is black better or can white equalize? Like, sorry, which move order do I have this under? Did I look at it? I looked at it, but maybe on my other comp. So we have to improvise. See, sometimes I'm so eager to get to Galactic's questions that, not to check your questions, that I check them on my home comp in the middle of the night. And now I can't. How do we get here? b6, knight e2, let's say bishop a6, castles, knight c6. See, I can't remember a single thing. It's really sad. Sorry for messing up the move order. Knight g3 here, was that it? Yeah, I think now we finally made it. So you're saying cd, this was your game, cd, knight d4, bishop b2, and compensation, e5. White equalizes, which is not the end of the world. But probably having gotten here and being the computer truther, is that the right word? Believer that I am, I will play knight a5, try to grab that pawn. Wojtaszek had it, no, was it Wojtaszek? I think Jobava had a game here, right? Or maybe a couple games, Jobava, Wojtaszek, something along those lines. I think you can just take the pawn, really. So that's probably what I would do. And it seems like there is not enough compensation for this. f6 is important. White's threat is to go f6 himself here. So you want to be aware of that. If white starts with f6, you're in time to take. And bishop g5, the carnage would be too big after knight e3. But yeah, not a particularly worrying line, because what you did seems fine as well. Just grab the pawn. But once we made it here and we switched on our computers, I would probably follow him and go knight a5 and grab this pawn instead. The other line I was talking about in the video series, I think f4 here. This is more critical, right? As usual, I have a horrible, horrible memory. But I hope that game went well for you, Mr. Galactic. Does he give us the end to the story? Game finally ended in a draw. What are you gonna do? Ross Pilach is asking, hi Jan, what in your opinion should black do in the following line of the Caro-Kann? e4, c6, c4, d5, and so on and so forth. Queen f4, check, knight b7, knight c3, g6, bishop c4, bishop g7. Knight f3, d3, a6, queen a3. Many strong players play it against me, and I'm always struggling to get a decent position. Thanks in advance. By the way, I very enjoy all of your video series on Chess24. Thank you so much. Since you were so nice, I find it hard to question your narrative that this very, very specific line that, frankly, before you posed this question, I had never seen is played against you by many strong players. They all line up to play queen a4 check. Knight d7, knight c3, g6, bishop c4, bishop g7, castles, d3, a6, queen a3. This is a position you get regularly? That's very surprising to me. Still, you should consider yourself lucky, because black is probably already slightly better here. You have to follow your boy Alexander Grischuk. Go b6. The idea is to play bishop b7, then b5, then knight b6, and then take the pawn. And there's very little white can do about it. b6 followed by bishop b7. Slow burn, but it works very, very well. We can't go b5 immediately because white would be able to take that. That's why we have to be humble. Go b6, bishop b7. Rook e1, rook e8, keep the pawn. Bishop e3, b5, knight b6. White has to try to keep the pawn alive for now. Now b4 is a threat, so they have to go queen b4, queen d8. All of this is still a game. Somebody against Grisha. So I forgot who it was. And yeah, then I believe the many strong players that played this against you will be in trouble, because white is slightly worse here. Therefore, yeah, I hope that helps. I'm not lying. I had never, and I've played this line with black, I had never seen this queen a4 check before. Now I've checked it to answer your question, and I saw there were some games in the database, but I'm still shocked by its popularity. Like, I used to play bishop b5 check here, and I've played a bit of knight c3, knight takes d5, knight f3 as well. The queen a4 check, I learned something new. So thanks for that, but it does not look to be scary. Just following this Grischuk game seems to be excellent for black. Jorge Carrasco is saying, hi Jan, against the Alpine, do you recommend d5 or knight f6? And what are the pros and cons? Thanks. I don't know. I've done both. And for me it depends. The typical cop-out answer. Like, my go-to repertoire would normally probably be to play knight f6. The pros are the position remains a little more full of play. So in order to play for a win, we talked about this stuff earlier. Black, in my opinion, keeps some more chances because the board is so full of pieces and it's much harder to simplify for white. While in these d5 lines, simplifications come a little with the territory if white recaptures on d4 with a piece or goes dc5, or even some of these IQP positions are kind of equal. So in order to play for a win, I normally prefer knight to f6. But there's also nothing wrong with d5 as far as I know. I recently played this, I went e6 here. So both moves are perfectly acceptable to me. What do we have next? We have Mr. Eve M. And maybe I'm slowly growing crazy. Or I'm becoming the three-eyed raven, which would be good. But I think the more likely explanation is that we had the exact same question in a previous opening clinic. Was it by you, Evam? Because it's such a specific question. And you're trying to drive me insane by just asking the same question again and again and checking if I answer the same way or if I change my story like the Joker. You want to know how I got these scars? So let's answer it again. Eve M is asking, hey Jan, I have a question regarding the London, if I've gone insane, or if someone else asked the question. My apologies, Eve M. Regarding the London system, in the line d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, bishop f4, c5, e3, knight c6, c3, queen b6. By the way, things have already gone wrong for white if you reach this position. The strong players that play the London system, they never get this position. After queen b6, they start with knight f3, knight bd2, or with e3, c3, knight d2. Never with this. Anyway, after queen b6, knight a3. Interesting. It's not that interesting. I have analyzed a bit and concluded that a6 is the more solid option with queen b3 and queen b8. I guess it means queen d8 equal. But 6, queen takes b2, knight b5, knight e4 is also possible. What would you recommend? As usual, I would recommend whatever the computer tells me to do. I'm a simpleton like that. And the computer tells me that knight a3, queen b2 is good for black. Knight b5, knight to e4. Threatening checkmate, believe it or not. So white has to take a timeout, cover it with bishop g3. Now c4 seems to work very well on a move-by-move basis. Knight c7 check, we don't care about, because this pawn will fall with devastating effects. Like king e2, e5, whatever. Black wins. And if white plays the move rook b1, then we have this very cute queen sacrifice. Queen takes b5, rook takes b5, knight takes c3. Then we recapture the rook, and once the smoke clears, black has all kinds of useful assets for his queen. So black is better here. That's what I would do. If I was surprised by the move knight a3, I would probably chicken out with a6 or calculate, but more likely I would chicken out. There's a6, queen b3, queen d8, as you mentioned, is also equal. Something like this. And I'm only showing this because I like this move here. Bishop c5. And if queen c5, knight e4 traps the queen. Very rare way to trap the queen. But that's also equal. So I hope that helps Eve M. Simpo137 is saying, hi Jan, I'm having trouble with my white repertoire and have much worse results with white than black. Why is that? As black I play the King's Indian and Najdorf and really enjoy the resulting complex middle games from these. As white I've struggled to settle on a set repertoire, play both e4 and d4. I have specific problems against the French e6 Sicilian, Caro-Kann with e4 and 1 d5 and the Nimzo with d4. Can you suggest a good book or an approach to preparing a white repertoire? It's tough. I don't really believe, but that might be a slightly... Yeah, I don't really believe so much in a white repertoire because, to my mind, chess, normally, if you analyze the opening, it will turn out to be more or less equal as long as we're playing solid mainline openings. And therefore, with white, if you keep doing the same thing at a certain level, you will run into trouble. That's why I've never been yet. I normally had a more set repertoire with black. With white, I try to be a little more flexible in my little world where I normally go d4, c4, or knight f3. I've done a video series which I thought was good, but yeah, it didn't really give any particular move orders. I call it like how to build your 1d4 repertoire, where I tried to explain what to look for and how to stay flexible with these things. But if you say that, yeah, you're doing fine with black because you limited yourself, then maybe the first step is with white to not try to do everything, but decide, play e4 or play d4, and start coming up with some systems against the French, the e6 Sicilian, the Caro-Kann, and take it from there. Because especially these openings you're mentioning, it's they're not so much a question of being flexible, but they're more of a question of, getting a repertoire, like against the French, the E6 Sicilian, the Caracan. As for good books or an approach to preparing a wide repertoire, I don't have one. I don't have a wide repertoire. I have files, and if I'm interested in something, I create a new file, and then I start preparing for an opponent. So maybe that would be my advice. Prepare more for your individual opponents and think less about a broad repertoire that covers everything. So learn how to use the database and whatever you have here, the ebooks, the video series and all that, to get information and find something that suits you. But yeah, since we're doing these opening clinics and tons of video series, I always find it hard to speak in general terms, because to me, chess is very much a move-by-move game, and I need a position to think about. And yeah, the longer you do that, the fewer holes you will hopefully have, and hopefully find something. Sorry for the long speech, I'm not sure. But yeah, I would say decide, for starters, to try to master both e4 and d4. Fairly big endeavor. Chucky is the best, is saying, "Hi Jan, I have a question about the following Bogo Indian line. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop b4 check, knight b2, castles, a3, bishop e7, e4, d5. This was quite popular 3 till 4 years ago, even at the highest GM level." At the highest GM level? I have the impression that its popularity has dropped considerably. Do you know why? The positions in the main line with the later h2, h4 are complex, but this counts for all other openings as well. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been the biggest Bogo Indian fan. And this particular line, I'm not sure if it's been refuted. It always struck me as very dangerous for black, because you can get checkmated. But I'm not 100% sure if and why people stop playing it, really. Is there a video series? I guess Niklas covered this in his video series, right? What I've noticed, the bishop d3, c5. The problem is white has many different approaches, and they're all very dangerous. Like the latest fashion seems to be, what did Giri do? He castled here, right? To castle, knight c6, and to play rook to e1 here, which also looks fairly dangerous for black. Yeah, it's just a slightly goofy version of these structures. So yeah, I never trusted them for black all that much, but I'm not aware of any direct refutation. And here, I don't know, what do they do? a5, right? I'm not even claiming white advantage or anything. I just, wouldn't like to play it with black. But that's as much as I know. Like queen c2, I think you said g6 and then lines with... No, but g6 is supposed to be bad, right? There, you have to go h6 here, so I'm not sure which lines with h4 you're referring to. Because I think g6 has been refuted here. h6, but they were sort of hanging around. But that's the problem. Like, a lot of lines are dangerous for black, and the upside doesn't seem that big. So I'm not a huge fan, but I'm also not aware of a refutation. And maybe it's good for you then. If you want to play it, you can keep doing it, and you'll be ahead of people that are not so aware of the latest developments there, because it's slightly out of the public eye. However, yeah, I don't know all that much. If I was white, I'd probably follow Giri and do this rook e1 business. CD. CD looks nice for white, and after a5. I'll give you a free novelty. Bishop c2 looks like an interesting move. Is it a novelty? I don't even know. Anyway, I'm not aware of why it's not being played anymore, but I've never been a fan in the first place. I clad in mighty... Is this a trick name? I don't speak English. I clad in mighty arms. I don't know what clad means. Says, "Hi Jan, I've studied and played chess for over 30 years. I'm not there yet, but it's gonna come soon as well. But haven't played a tourney in 17 years. Yeah, we're still in similar spots. I've played only Thailand Open in like 7 years. I'm considering trying to play a tourney in a year or so. By all means, do it. You'll enjoy it, the rush of blood to the head. My old rating was around 2300 FIDE. Against e4, I'd like to play e5. I get fairly nauseated through, though, imagining all the various gambits I might get into. Goring gambit, Scotch gambit, Max Lange attacks, Danish gambits. We saw how Kasparov rehabilitated the Evans gambit. Yeah, that was around 17 years ago. Probably more. 90s, right? Rehabilitated, yeah. Are the rarer cake porn gambits considered bad these days? Were they ever not considered bad? Or are they just too risky for white players to essay? That's the same thing, right? Bad, too risky. So, yeah, I would say don't worry about it. I've covered all of these things in the past on some DVD, but nowadays really, yeah, you want to have a clue what to do against the Italian, what to do against the Ruy Lopez, and maybe what to do against the Scotch. All these other random gambits, they're random gambits for a reason. They're not very good, and you don't need to know tons of stuff to face them. And I would be very surprised if in your tournament comeback after 17 years, people start playing whatever it's all called, the Goring Gambit, the Max Lange, the Nordic Gambit, I don't know what all the names are, against you. Normally there's a simple cop-out as well, like here you go, d5 and you're fine. And what else is there here? Let's say this business. You can fine, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure there's plenty of information. People like doing books or DVDs or things about these lines because they're easy to cover. But yeah, I would really not be concerned about it at all if I was you. And best of luck with your comeback. Keep us posted. 17 years, nothing really changed. King Muncher is saying, Dear Jan, I want to know what to play against the Caro-Kann as white. I previously played knight d2. Also, what to play against 6 knight f3 in the main line. Many just play knight d7, but I play e6, so I'm not sure what to do. Thanks. So you want to know both what to do against the Caro-Kann and in the Caro-Kann. Am I understanding correctly? What do you want me to tell you? Like, e5 is probably the most critical test, even though these positions are a little hard to understand. That without any other information, that's probably what I would do. I also have some sympathy for this system, the two knights, but there's also nothing wrong with what you did. That I'm assuming is this. And your question is how to react to 6 knight f3, because normally people go h4, h6, and now knight f3. When you go e6, did I get that right? So here, this is a line that is playable for black. And if this is your repertoire, then after knight f3, do the same thing, play e6. What's stopping you? And after h4, you go h6 and you transpose back to your stuff. If white goes knight e5 here, you go knight d7, knight g6, hg. It's not very threatening because knight on g3 is a little misplaced. So yeah, keep doing what you've been doing, King Muncher, or do something else. Those are the options. Mr. Slavo F is saying, Hello Jan, I have a similar question as KLamar74, see below. After d4, knight f6, c4, c5, I consider playing 3 knight f3. Is this way of playing can give white something, or if white like to play for advantage, then he should play 3 d5. And what is, in your opinion, most promising continuation for white after cd, knight d4, knight c6, knight c3, e6? And that's a question, yeah, that I've gotten plenty, and I think I've talked about plenty as well. I normally always say the same. I don't know any way for white to get an advantage. I still do it mainly for practical reasons, because I feel like black players are almost never as well prepared against knight f3 as they are against d5. But yeah, we had a similar question earlier, as Slavo mentioned. This stuff, in my opinion, is the best way, or the most straightforward way for black to play. What I think is best for white, I don't know. I've played 5 different moves here. Like g3 is the most theoretical, but then after queen b6, black is probably okay. Black, as a rule, is okay in most sharp variations, so it's hard to say, do this every game and you get an advantage. It doesn't really work like that. Sometimes I might want to try to test black in one of these lines here with knight db5, knight e5, and let's say bishop g2 or bishop f4. Objectively, black is fine, but he has to know a lot of stuff. Sometimes if you feel like, nah, he's gonna know everything there, then I might play a move like bishop f4. I've done this once. And then on yet another day, I might play a move like a3. None of these lead to an advantage, but yeah, that's more in line with I talked about this earlier. But my general philosophy with white, I find it hard nowadays to get an opening advantage against well-prepared players. Therefore, it's more and more important to be flexible, even within like such a narrow territory here. If they play the main line where I think black equalizes, I don't want to have only one choice and keep doing that. Of course, if you do something where I don't think you equalize, like play e5 here, then I'll happily do the same thing over and over again, because I think I'm better with white. But against the more solid setups, I feel it's important to be flexible. So sorry, no opening advantage there that I'm aware of. Mariusz Kolac is asking, hello Jan, any recommendation against 1 e4? Yeah, e5 is good. Nur Spielen is asking, hey Jan, what do you think about the variation d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, queen c2 castles, a3, bishop c3, queen c3, b5? I've studied that variation a long time ago, I think in some training camp. Maybe together, no, I shouldn't spoil who I looked at it with, but it's been a long time ago. So yeah, I decided I'm never gonna play it. That was my conclusion back then, but it's not as bad as it looks. Which, yeah, sure that's... It isn't. It looks fairly ridiculous. But black gets some play after cb c6. White can't just take the pawn and enjoy himself. It's a bit Benko spirit after bc, knight c6, and bishop a6, rook c8. Black would get a lot of counterplay. So yeah, to my mind, the two main moves here are bishop to g5 or pawn to f3. I think pawn to f3 is what I've played in practice. After knight d5, you have to decide where to go with the queen, d3, d2, b3, all possible. It's not necessarily good for white, but it struck me as white should be slightly better there. And bishop g5 is a similar story after cb, e3, bishop b7. Things are quite complicated, but I have a feeling white should get a small advantage if he knows what he's doing. After, yeah, there's many moves here. But it's a playable line, and I don't want to talk you out of it. It's not what you do if you're looking for move-by-move equality, but if you're looking to spice things up early and are willing to take a little risk, b5 is a playable move. Or, well, playable depends on your definition. Chameleon is saying, hi Jan, I'm playing the semi-Slav via the Slav move order with black and have problems creating an interesting game against weaker opponents. I hear that so often. I thought about using the Queen's Gambit decline move order to avoid the exchange Slav, which to a great degree is responsible for these uneventful draws. So you play a lot of uneventful draws in the exchange Slav? But I'm not sure whether it's a big deal that in some lines my c8 bishop cannot go to f5, and whether the Catalan is difficult to learn. It is. I've done a whole video series on all that business. Can you give an estimation of how bad the former really is and how much effort it is to study all these new lines? It really depends on the level where you're playing at and your level of scrutiny. I would think, that I really don't know. If you check out my video series, you'd be well armed there, but a lot of those will also end in dull equality, so not sure that will make you much happier. Can you give how much effort it is to study all these new lines? Alternatively, if I definitely want to play for a win with black against d4, c4, knight f3 openings, is there a line where it is unlikely that sub 2000 players go for drawish simplifications? Thank you in advance. I don't know. Are sub 2000 players known to go for drawish simplifications? I'm not sure. It doesn't, I haven't witnessed it all that much, but there is, of course, the usual trade-off. You can play the King's Indian, you can play the Grunfeld, the Benoni, d4, g6, where you're maybe not fighting for equality. And I don't mean that in a condescending way that black is worse, but your goal is not to equalize out of the opening, but to get a sharper position. And of course, the price you often pay for it is you give up a little space in the center, for example. Or you have a structure like in the Benoni that is a little riskier, or the Benko. So you can play either of those openings, or you can learn to embrace the darkness. And I don't know, I'd be confident against sub 2000 players in all of these positions. Even bishop f5. I understand this is not the sexiest case I'm making, but even here, you cannot play a weaker opponent. I think you can score really, really highly here if you're just willing to try to play these positions for a win and don't think, oh, it's a symmetrical position after 5 moves, it's a draw. So a lot of it, I believe, is mindset. But of course, I'm aware of that problem, and I've been alternating between all kinds of move orders to get people into positions they might like less. I've played the Slav move order, I've played the d4, knight f6, c4, e6 move order, I've played a lot of d4, d5, c4, e6, followed by c6 at some juncture. So all these options are at your disposal. As for how many hours it will take you to master any opening, I have no idea. It depends how many hours you want to spend, really. You're never at the point where you've mastered it and no more work is needed. But getting started doesn't take that much time. Primator is saying, hi Jan. Galactic is calling me out. He's saying 2640 GM. I'd be confident against sub 2000. No way. No, I was trying to make a point that in these exchange Slav positions, it's more of a matter of, just play for a win. If you're a stronger player, you can certainly keep enough life in these positions, especially at a slightly lower level where people sub 2000, normally they won't do everything perfectly. Or even at my level, if I was, let's say, white there against Magnus Carlsen or Fabiano Caruana, I'd be absolutely not certain to get a draw by playing the exchange Slav. So I think it's more of a mental roadblock in most of these cases. But it's of course a question every opening clinic we get it 15 times. I would like to play for a win with black, and it always implies that if you play a solid line, it will automatically end in a draw, which I normally don't really believe that narrative at slightly lower levels. Still, let's move on to Primator's question, who's saying, hi Jan, I have seen that c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6, g3, d5, cd, knight d5, bishop g2, bishop c5 has become quite popular recently. I've also seen that. But can't white stop this with the c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, g3 move order? And is 3 knight f3 then inexact if it gives black this extra option? It's give and take. Nothing's for free. Both have pros and cons. You bring up a good point. But the other move, so we're talking about this position, and after knight f3, knight c6, g3, d5, cd, knight d5, bishop g2, bishop c5 has indeed become very popular. Not voluntarily retreating to b6, which was the main line forever. And there's nothing wrong with this one either, as far as I know. So what you're saying is, if we start with g3, here after d5, takes, bishop g2, you have to go knight b6. That is correct. The is a strong word, but the extra option black gets after g3 is here he can play bishop b4, bishop g2, and castles, and he's not committed to putting his knight on c6. So if you go knight f3 here, black has a bunch of systems that are quite playable. One of them being rook to e8, then maybe intending to go c6, d5. Another one is to take here, followed by d6, maybe playing knight bd7. All of these setups are played at a high level regularly, and here black really benefits from not having his knight on c6 yet. Therefore, it's a compromise. I agree with your point, and you could certainly take some people out of their repertoire if their repertoire was only, quote-unquote, to play this d5, bishop c5 line. But you're also giving up something in form of these bishop b4 lines. Of course, that could lead us to thinking, why not play g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and we have the best out of every world. The problem with g3 nowadays at the top level is that c6 has gotten a good reputation. Therefore, whatever you play, you give up something, you also allow something. It seems like the top guys still feel that their best chance to fight for an opening advantage is in the four knights. But it's normally not so much about what is best and what is wrong, but about being aware of what allows what and what doesn't. Anyway, thanks for the question and excellent point, Mr. Primator. Oscar S. Hales is saying, hello Jan, as a d4 player I struggle against the King's Indian, also against the Grunfeld and Nimzo, but that's another story, since I'm quite scared of the massive kingside attack in the main lines. I hear you. However, recently I faced the King's Indian and I gave a try to the Sokolov system. I also like the Petrosian system, like Kramnik played against Nakamura in London 2014. So my question is, what is it that you don't like? Don't play these systems against the King's Indian. Thank you and keep the great NBA trade predictions. I'm not sure if I'll be able to keep that up. And no, I don't have anything particularly critical to say. I actually agree with you that both the systems you're mentioning are quite interesting. And I might give them a shot, who knows? I thought it was an interesting way to play. This bishop e2, castles, bishop e3, delaying knight f3, which looks strange at first sight. The point is that after e5, d5, a5, you can go for this g4 business, where it's very useful, not having moved your knight yet. I think I actually played this recently in some rapid tournament, so I have a lot of sympathy for the system. And yeah, I think it's playable objectively. The critical test has to be c5, when this bishop is committed here. But at least that does not allow the King's Indian guys to get their favorite structure. So yeah, I like that system. The other one you're mentioning, there's more particular idea, was this Kramnik stuff. That was more, was this? I think that was more of a one-off probably, but also an interesting line. If you're better prepared than your opponents here, you can certainly ask some questions there as well. So, no, by all means, looks like you have some good ideas against the King's Indian. Go for it. Black Smoke of Buddha, Fidemaster, is saying, hello Jan. What is your current opinion on how black reaches near equality after the moves e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, 6, d3. Also, why the variation after 6, rook e1, b5, bishop b3, d6, c3, castles, d4 is not seen so often? Best regard and keep up the good work. Yeah, that's a fairly general question. Obviously, I've spent ages on the first position, which happened a lot, for example, in the Carlsen Kayaking match. This is 6d3. I don't know, play the main line, go b5, bishop b3, d6. And it looks like black is doing sort of alright against the moves that used to be trendy, a3 and a4. Nowadays they went back to a bit more of c3 here, but if white has to go for c3, d3. Something's gone right already. So yeah, I'm not sure what you want me to tell you. After a3, all the main systems are in good shape as far. You can go knight a5 followed by bishop e6. You can go knight a5 followed by c5. You can also play what Svidler normally does here. Play knight a5, bishop a2, now c5, knight c3, bishop e6. All these systems, as far as I know, are in fairly good shape. That's why I think a3 is not seen that often. After a4, I'm not sure what I would do. Probably b4. But bishop d7 is also a move. And after c3, yeah, I would probably play what everybody does. Go knight bd2, knight a5, followed by c5. So that's my current opinion on 6d3. My current opinion on why we don't see this line so often. First of all, normally black starts with castles at a high level. They play the marshal more than d6 nowadays. And then d4 is not that great because of knight takes d4, or at least this is a bonus option that black has. So there's that, and I'm also not sure I agree with your premise, because this line, it's played quite a bit, isn't it? Svidler had it recently against Nepomniachtchi in the Sinquefield Cup. It seems like it's still very much alive and kicking. And yeah, I don't think it's disappeared really. So that's a playable line as far as I know. I hope that helped. Superfishy24 is saying, "Hi Jan, I remember you mentioning that the Sicilian Dragon has quite a few problems. Could you show the lines where you think black is struggling?" Thanks, Jan. Yeah. I think it's most lines, really. So it's hard to pinpoint it. The Dragon, it's a fun opening to analyze, but I'm not sure it's a fun opening to play. It feels like, if you look at it, there's a lot of spots where the deeper you go, it becomes a bit of a thankless fight for a draw, which is not what you have in mind when you play the Dragon, right? That's why we play the exciting Dragon, because we don't want to have these thankless fights for draws, and we don't want all these sub 2000 players simplifying. So yeah, in this line, for example, after long castles, d5 is fairly universally considered the best move. And the move queen e1, I never knew how to equalize against that one. I'm aware of the theory e5 or e6, but I don't think it's great. Even the, how does the other line go? The other main line, this, here, queen b6. Did I freeze? Something weird just happened. It's a very confusing day, as always. Queen b6, knight a4. Even this position, I was never that fond of with black, even though those are problems. Then after g4, bishop e6 is the main line, which is also, it's not bad necessarily, this position, but black has to be incredibly precise to survive this stuff. And the very main line, bishop c4, bishop d7, long castles. How does it go? c8, bishop b3. Nowadays they all take, followed by b5, which might be playable, but this is not for black at all. So a lot of spots that I don't really trust for black, even though we'd all love to play the Dragon. It's so cuddly, and there's not so many dragons left out there, unless we count ice dragons, of course. Night Jedi 2003 is saying, "Hey Jan, I'm thinking of employing Banco Gambit in my own games, not just in other people's games. I was inspired by Pepe's video series, by the way, but I'm a bit concerned about all the sidelines. What's the best way to learn them? Only database, or is there a book or video you could recommend me? Thanks in advance and keep up great work. Thanks Night Jedi 2003. I have to admit, since I don't like giving pawns, that I've never seen Pepe's video series. He doesn't cover all the sidelines, or he doesn't cover the sidelines. If he does, that would be an obvious place to start if you were inspired by that series, right? Other than that, yeah, maybe I could help you out if you give me a specific sideline, but if you're asking for Banco literature, I have to pass, I have to admit. I have never read a book on the Banco, and yeah, I normally just use databases and engines when studying such stuff. But also, if you're happy with the Banco mainline, maybe just go for it and wing it. Don't worry about all the sidelines. You'll learn them one after another, should they be played against you. But normally sidelines are sidelines for a reason. I'm not sure that applies on the Banco. So yeah, I'm with you. Sounds like a lot of work. You have to know about b6, you have to know about f3, you have to know about e3, you have to know about queen c2 here, you have to know about a4, you have to know about f3, knight f3, you have to know about all these lines where white takes the pawn, then goes knight c3, g3, bishop g2. And what's the price? You're just a pawn down in the end. Sounds like too much work. Do something where you don't lose a pawn. No, I'm messing around. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Pepe series. So, best of luck with it. I'm being told Christoph Zilecki is an expert in Banco. Satoshi is saying, hello Jan, so I played the Portuguese variation against e4. That's a good way to start any sentence. So I played the Portuguese variation against e4. So this position would arise after e4, d5, ed knight f6, d4 bishop g4, bishop b5 check, knight b7, f3, bishop f5, c4. We're pawn down already? Poor us. Now black can attempt to gain compensation through the queen side with a6, b5 ideas. But I'm not sure, as white also has potential ideas on the king side with g4, g5. Unless I have the wrong position in mind. Sorry if that's the case. So I'm not sure what's the best way to get counterplay. What do you suggest? I suggest to not play the Portuguese variation. But it looks like this is a non-negotiable fact. I have to be honest, I don't have a clue. I think our friend David Smurden, he wrote a whole book on the Portuguese variation, where I'm sure he talks about all these things in great detail. The Portuguese variation is your weapon of choice for the future. Or, yeah, do something different. I honestly know very little. So how did this go? Bishop b5 check. Oh no, probably give the check first here. Bishop b5, knight b7, f3, bishop f5. I believe knight c3 is supposed to be a problem for black here, right? Mr. Smurden. But after c4, a6, bishop a4. Yeah, my computer says b5, which looks logical, no? Break up. Breaker of chains. And it looks like, yeah, it's still slightly worse because your opponent out quickly. This looks like a reasonably playable position, even though I'm sure the computer will take white side. But yeah, that's as much as I can tell you. I'd go for a6, b5. I don't think the g4 ideas will materialize in time here. And after cb, I'm not into detail. I don't know if it's better to start with knight d5 or with ab, followed by knight d5. But it looks sort of playable for black to me. So best of luck playing the Portuguese variation. I'm sure you'd be very happy if you're a pawn down. You're probably more upset, you Portuguese guys, if one just does something extremely dull like this, right? And without having to know anything, slightly better with white. Just to annoy you Portuguese variation players. Anyway. JLR, hey. He's saying, hi Jan, thanks for your contributions. Thank you, I tried to contribute. Around 2200 ELO. Want to know what would be your advice when playing Sicilian O'Kelly with black? We're having back-to-back interesting premises here. One guy wants to play the Portuguese variation, and JLR Hay says, we play the O'Kelly with black, e4, c5, knight f3, a6, as you do, and then faced with the Alpen, also known as sort of the refutation of a6. Could you suggest one solid, safe, though not drawish, approach and one spicy, trying to go for the throat of the opponent approach for black? Thanks again, Best Jeffrey. Just to get this straight, you want to play 2a6, which is not considered to be a very serious line. The only point, as far as I understand, is that d4 is a mistake, because here you can go e5, and black is okay. White player will know that, and plays g3 or c3. You're in trouble, and even after c4, I would say you're in trouble, but we could dispute that on the Maroczy side. But after c3, which is of course 10 times stronger than 2c3, since knight f3 is stronger than a6, now you're asking for a solid and a spicy option in a position where we're already in some trouble. Okay, I will answer the question. Here's a solid option. This is the solid option. You go d5, queen d5, d4, f6, and then only go bishop e2, I guess. You go e6, and you're slightly worse, but it's a playable, solidish position where most likely you will get some IQP business. And the spicier option is to play e6, d4, d5. And after e, you might be the side playing with the isolated queen's pawn, which is a little riskier strategically, but also has more upside. Maybe you can even grab some space here. Well, after e5, you play some weirdo exchange, advanced French. You can go for this bishop d7, bishop b5 idea, if you feel like. But of course, the best thing would be to play a move in this position that in one way or another contributes to getting your pieces out. Like d6, e6, knight c6, g6, or knight f6 all strike me as better moves than a6. So it might be that you should start looking on move 2, not on move 3. Lighty is saying, hello Jan, my problem is to find a method to train strategy in the openings. Once again, you've come to the place where I preach chess is a move-by-move game. Can you please give me some tips, especially for d4 openings? What are the most important things to know? Pawn structures or best position for minor pieces, or is it better to train other things? Maybe you have some good lecture ideas. Thank you and best regards. I'm sorry, I don't think that way. And this is not meant as criticism. It's really more the way I approach stuff, that I don't know how to deal with such questions, because I really just don't think in such terms. I think chess is such a concrete game. Like, I don't know how to word it by saying, where do we best put our minor pieces in 1d4 openings? And the only serious answer anybody should be able to give is it depends. Like 1d4, c5, now we have to deal with the threat to our d4 pawn. And I can't say, you put the knight on f3, the other knight on c3 after you went c4, then you go g3, bishop g2, short castles. I don't know. I just don't think that way. Of course, you can build a repertoire based around whatever. Fianchettoing your kingside bishop more often than not. where you try to play this system against the Grunfeld and the King's Indian. You try to play Catalan against knight f6, e6. But that doesn't mean that in d4 positions the bishop belongs on g2 or anything like that. Yeah. I don't know. Pawn structures, one could argue. I'm reading, a book of Sokolov about structure. His book is mainly on the, what's called the isolated queen's pawn structure, right? I'm not sure. No, my advice would be start looking at one opening, get a good book or watch a good video series here, and then take it from there, go to the next one, but don't look for the general formula, like what are strategies or where my pawns or my pieces should go in d4 openings. I don't believe in such general formulas. Of course, a lot of it will become second nature the more you learn about stuff, like after c5. It's quite typical that white has the decision to expand with d5, or do you not? Do you ignore it? Can you keep the tension? But no, I struggle giving advice like that because I just don't believe in it myself. So sorry, Lighty, I know that's not what you want to hear. But that's how I see the world. I try harder is saying, hi Jan, my questions regard the Sicilian Count from Black's perspective. I wonder why it is not seen often in top-level chess. I'm talking about e4, c5, knight 3, e6, d4, cd, knight d4, a6. It seems to score pretty well overall. I think the most forcing line starts with 5 bishop d3. What is the best approach to fight against this variation? And what do you think of the 5 knight c3 b5 line? Thanks and best regards. I try harder. Well, once again, I disagree with your evaluation of the situation. People want me to accept a lot of premises in these last questions. So I believe that it's not as popular as it used to be, if it ever was very popular, which one could also dispute. I don't think e6, a6 has ever been very popular at top-level chess. But I believe that the reason why it no longer is popular, even though it never was, is that this 5c4 move, which Magnus Carlsen used in his match against Vishianen, left a lasting impression. And this is sort of an easy repertoire for white to build. After c4, knight f6, knight c3, after bishop b4, queen to d3, has been struggling. And after queen to c7, a3, at top-level chess, this is also considered to be slightly. So, yeah, white doesn't seem to have to work very much to get a pleasant position against the Paulsen. And then there is the problem that there are other moves, knight c3 and bishop d3, which I know absolutely nothing about. So I can't really go into details here. I know there's plenty choices for black. Like in the old days, I played a bit of bishop c5, followed by bishop e7 here, trying to get some sort of hedgehog position, which I'm also not all that happy about. There's also setups with knight f6, d6. There's all kinds of moves. I don't like it for black. So it's not forcing either. Like there's many c3, b5, similar. This is a bit more. This a bit. Bishop d3 and queen b6 is what I used to do in the old days, when people were afraid of knight f3. But no, I'm sorry, I know too little to answer your question. I can't give you a dossier of e6, a6. What I can tell you is that it's no longer popular, or it's not popular, because of c4, knight f6, knight c3, which would be the first order of business for me if I want to make it work for black, which I don't. Kappa Tal punishment. Can you feel we're like 2 hours in? I'm starting to get tired. I'm becoming more condescending, which I always try to avoid, but it always happens anyway. So I try harder, and everybody else. It's not you, it's me. Capital Punishment is saying, Jan, what setup do you recommend for London system players? This has to be a punchline already, right? What setup do you recommend for London system players? Play your London system. If that's the premise, play it. Anyway, let's read the question first. After d4, e6, obviously 2e4 loses because black will play d5 winning. Don't mess with the French. After 2 bishop f4, knight f3, d5, we're back in London territory. But there's a risk of 2 f5, and you're in a Dutch, where your bishop is easy to push around. So what should white do? You London, no, I don't think it's you London system players, because nowadays a lot of people play the London system for an opening advantage quite seriously. But still, the nature of the question puzzles me. So after d4, e6, knight f3, or bishop f4, you're afraid of the move f5, because now your bishop can be pushed around. This looks like the best London system you could ever dream of, right? You go bishop f4, you go e3, you do what you always do in all your London systems. You go h3, bishop e2, castle, c4, knight c3, and you get a decent position with it for once, where black has played the ridiculous move f5. So just be happy, play what you want to do anyway, and enjoy life. Your bishop won't get pushed around too much, because black already played e6, so he can't go d6 and then e5 in one go. And if he goes g5, weakening his kingside more power to him. So I do not understand your very irrational fear of e6 intending to play f5. My apologies. Go for it anyway. Ollie Chess is saying, hi Jan, what do you think about the Scotch? I watched the series with Sopico. I don't really want to enter the very theoretical Spanish. Do you think the Scotch is good enough at my level to improve, or I should study Spanish without a doubt? My coach thinks that Spanish is the king of openings, but I don't really want to study that much theory. I'm a 2260 player. Thanks, Jan. I don't know, there's this old school reasoning, which I guess I kind of agree with, even though I'm not sure if I do. That one should always start will teach you how to play chess with all the different structures that could arise from it. The Spanish is richer, and it's not so much about studying theory, but about gaining knowledge. So for improving, I guess I would agree that you probably will benefit more from playing the Spanish, even if you're not going to study anything at all. Just put the bishop on b5, take it there. But my opinion on the Scotch is, it's a playable opening. It's played enough at the highest of levels to show that it has its teeth. It leads to some very freakish structures, where it's often not so much, but more about, direct knowledge of what goes where, when. So it fits with my general move-by-move philosophy, but it's actually, to my mind, it's a more theoretical opening than the Spanish, because here, if you don't know exactly what you're doing after, let's say, c4, a6, or wherever, knight d2, g6, then you might end up in trouble with white very quickly. So you have to know your theory exactly to play the Scotch. But if you do, then it's a playable opening, and you can very much specialize in it. I am not against it at all. I'm just saying that, you have to be very ready. And to my mind, it's more theoretical, because you can end up being much worse in the Scotch if you don't know your business. Sorry, that was my cuff button in action. So the stakes in a way are higher. You have to know your theory extremely well with white in the Scotch, because else you can just end up much worse in these nights. But don't play it as an excuse not to put in work. If you want to play a lazy opening, then it's much better to play either the Ruy Lopez or the Gioco Piano, and then you go d3 castles, a4, c3, h3, rook e1, knight b2 every game. And you don't need to know any theory. So the Scotch is not a lazy opening, but it's a playable opening. If you are willing to work, watch the video series, then you might be able to gain an edge against opponents. Next question. Mr. Flo is saying, "Hi Jan, what would you recommend against Alekhine for a 1900-2000 player? Thanks and best regards from Eimsbüttel. That's my old neighborhood. I spent many years living in Eimsbüttel. But no longer. I miss it though. It's beautiful." As for the question, play what the whole internet does. I guess this is some repertoire books, because literally 10,000% of the internet play this system. And I know that because I've played many games with because for some very irrational reason I like pre-moving knight f6 and bullet, even though the clock doesn't stop running till after that pre-move. I still do it, so I have experience in this position and 1000% of the internet, as said, goes for this system. And the bad thing is, white is better here. So I never enjoy my pre-moving adventures very much. After CD you go, what do? They go knight c3, g6, bishop e3, bishop g7, c1. I think they go b3 now. Spoiling all the fun. After knight c6, white grabs more space with d5. White is just better here. So I normally play ed. But the problem is, once again, that white is better here as well. This is how my games normally go. After bishop f6, that's what I tend to do. You go b3, that's the most precise, overprotecting the c4 pawn, so you can meet. Knight to b4 with bishop b1. Well, after takes, bishop h7, white is better as well. Therefore, yeah, that's all you need to know about the Alekhine. It's not a very good opening. Or not terrible either, but not great. Sea Eagle, that's a lot of E's. He's asking, Jan, what do you think about the line e4, c5, knight f3, e6, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, knight db5, bishop c5? Is there any way for white to get an advantage? Always these absolute terms. As usual, the question is, I don't really know, but I would do the following. First of all, in this move order, I believe take c6 might be a sterner, is that the word? Sterner test. This position I've always been skeptical about for black. But having made it here, I'm aware of this move. It's not as dumb as it might look. But I'd still give it a check. I believe bishop f4 is the official main line, but then castle is. So I'd give the check. King e7, bishop f4. And it seems like the only good move for black is e5, check, knight f5 check, king f8, bishop to d5. And white is a little better here. I guess bishop b4 is the main line, knight e3, fighting for that square. It's pleasant. Yeah, well, there were some other moves like d6 maybe. And once again, we can probably claim a little something, even though this is fairly standard position, which is playable for black too. I'd still take white with this grip on the d5 square, but it's not too horrible. So long story short, instead of takes, there's also knight e3, but who cares? Long story short, white is a little better, but it's not the worst opening I've ever seen. I throw rocks at blind kids. Who doesn't? Is saying, hi Jan, I can't decide what to play against 1d4. Sorry man, I have watched your video series, Peter's PhD dissertation on the Grunfeld and Robin's King's Indian series. All great videos, but I still cannot decide what to play. Cavs and 4. I enjoy the Nimzo, but against 3 knight f3 I really enjoy the Benoni as well, since it sidesteps most of the really dangerous white lines. What do I do? So many opening problems, so little time. Nah, it sounds like you have the time. Rox, you've watched all these series. You could have just chosen one opening and stuck with it. but you've watched them all, so you're a hard worker. I don't know what your question is. If you want to play the Nimzo and combine it with the Benoni, you do that. There's not very much I have, apart from the fact that the Benoni is still a horrible opening. But that's my personal preference, and you do have a point that here after c5, d5, you've avoided a lot of the dangerous setups you would have to face after knight c3, c5, d5. Like all the setups with e or knight e2, knight g3, all of those are no longer there. Still, in line with our previous questions, you still have to know what to do against knight c3 here or against g3. And d5 is still not big, but whatever makes you happy, really. Play the Grunfeld, play the King's Indian, play the Nimzo, combined with e6, d5, as I recommend. Play it combined with the Benoni. You can't go wrong as long as you're willing to study an opening and play it. Except for the Dutch. That would be one way to go very, very wrong. But if it's not the Dutch, by all means, knock yourself out. I can't make that choice for you. As much as I wanted. Momo is saying, "Hi Jan, is there a way to punish d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4 without transposing to a Ragozin?" Punish, once again, strong words, but well, it's a playable line. So I don't think there's a refutation. Bishop b4. As you mentioned, knight f3 probably the best black has is to transpose to some sort of Ragozin with knight f6. I believe the most ambitious way to play, which I'm normally critical of in the Nimzo, I don't really believe in playing a3 and going for these double pawns voluntarily. But here, since black has already played d5, we can normally get rid of our double pawns quite quickly. And this, in my opinion, is the critical test. The main line goes something like knight f6, e3, and now either castles or c5. Let's say castles, cd, ed. And this is a very classical structure from, what is it? Botvinnik Capablanca? Where white, at least in my mind, was always supposed to be a little better. You go knight e2, you go f3, you go short castles, and you either go knight g3, rook a2, rook e2, e4, or sometimes you push g4. These positions, they are very rich strategically, but I like them for white with extra. And of course black can try to do something against it, but typically you will end up, at least in this sort of structure, by playing 4a3. That I consider the most critical test. There's I think c6 is maybe Caruana, who you fun. c6, a4. c6, the point being that you can go cd, cd. But it also look nice for white to me. So I'm not saying it's a refutation, but I believe a3 or e3, knight f6, a3 is the critical test of this business. Just to be clear, the difference to the Nimzo is very slowly, just so you know. In the Nimzo, black would never go d5 here. They will go c5, fix that pawn, and then attack it. Well, if you go d5, then we're back in this business. And here I believe white has decent chances. Sachin Roy is saying, "Hi Jan the man." Oh. The soothsayer, chess player and chess commentator extraordinaire. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So my question is in a specific line of the Gioco Piano from the white side. It's been played a lot by Vishy Arnold against Levon and against Hikaru in Norway chess this year. The line is, long line, we'll put it on the board. Here, the engine very boldly points out the move bishop takes h3 and gives minus 0.32 for black. I'm guessing the question is, the line goes g8-3, knight f4, and this definitely looks very good for black. Yet neither Aronian nor Nakamura, two very aggressive players, went for this. Is there anything wrong with the move bishop h3? To a patzer like me, it really looks really playable for black and difficult for white. And yeah, I'm aware of that. I think I might even have tweeted it out when I first saw this position live in the Vishy Aronian game. But bottom line is, which move order do I have this under? Probably not here. Ugh, I have all these Italian move orders. Sorry. Just. Here we are. And long story short, you need a faster engine, Mr. Sachin Roy, because if you put a powerful engine on the position, bishop h3, gh, knight f4, the engine I have running here is not very powerful. You can see it says the position is equal. But if you let a strong engine run a little longer, cracks will start occurring. And I've put this to a powerhouse, and the powerhouse says that after both king h2 or knight f1, white is significantly better. And Vishy Anand knows everything about everything, so he knew that. And he was trying to into this business. This one refutation. The lines are tricky, but they seem to work. Knight g5, h6, knight e3, I believe. And the other was king h2, a little more human. Queen d7, knight g1, bishop f2, knight df3. And white stabilizes after bishop takes e1. He goes bishop f4. Let's say ef, queen takes e1. This position is very bad for black. Of course, there's some alternatives. Nothing really works. So it's a tarp. She was trying to trick the guys into this bishop h3 business. Which looks tempting. I don't think this bishop b3 is necessarily the most... I don't know. It's actually a challenging move. Mr. Anand knows what he's doing there. Arno Garabetian is saying, "Hi Jan, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4 Scotch. What would be your recommendation for an aggressive black player who would like to keep winning chances without getting smashed like the game Nepo Tomaszewski?" Yeah, that was a weird game, but that line that they played in that game has been known to be fine for black pretty much forever. I think Tomaszewski just forgot his theory. The same line was recently played in Svidla Carlsen in St. Louis. And Carlsen knew the theory. I've played, I don't know, 5 games from the black side of this position. This is Nepomniachtchi Tomaszewski, where it's kind of well known nowadays that both d6 and g5, ask any computer of your choice, are fine for black. d6 is what Carlsen played, also what I normally played. So I don't know what Tomaszewski played. He made some blunder like bishop g7, or he just forgot his theory. But no, this line is absolutely fine for black. And even for an aggressive player who likes to keep winning chances, such as yours truly, I believe the line is appropriate and will meet your demands without getting smashed. Then again, sometimes the price of being an aggressive player that wants to keep winning chances is you might get smashed. There's nothing free in this world. But I would recommend the move knight to f6, as I have mentioned. However, I have not worked out how to be an aggressive player after knight c3 here, so that's another Another roadblock. Life is very tough. Maybe play the knight off. But then again, bishop b5 check there. It's all very tough. Can't win. TSV Trostberg is saying, "Hi Jan, could you please share your thoughts on the interesting 6c4 in the e4, e6, d4, d5, knight d2, knight c6, knight gf3, knight f6, e5, knight d7 variation of the French? Basically, the critical lines, your recommendations, and the word on the street of top GMs." It has not been covered, I'm pretty sure, in any previous episodes. Thanks for your question, TSV Trostberg. I'm afraid that the grapevine or the word on the street by top GMs on this particular sideline of a sideline it's on the top GM streets there. Or maybe I'm not privy to these conversations. Because after knight to d2, what is going on? After knight d2, let's see. The main move is c5. Arguably, the second main move raises bishop to e7. I would say fourth, he takes e4. Fifth, h6, 6, a5. Is that fair? I'm not sure about 5 and 6. You could put knight c6 in the category. What I'm saying is knight c6 is a very sideliney sideline. And I don't think there's a lot of buzz. But your suggestion looks perfectly logical to me. After e5, knight d7, what black wants to do is go f6 and then somehow develop quickly and maybe get an e5 at a much later stage. I believe white is also supposed to be better after knight b3 or bishop d3. Let's see. Big theoretical lines continue. I would guess takes, knight takes. White is better. Why wouldn't he be? This knight c6 is just such a concession because you block your own c-pawn. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have much. I'm not sure if c4 is the best move, but I do like white's chances here. I think that's a good choice, the c4 move. So, by all means, knock yourself out. But I've never, witnessed any top discussion. Top GM discussions on that topic. My apologies. Hang on, Devon Patel. Devon Patel is next. And he's asking, "Hi Jan, do you agree that the Nimzowitsch defense is highly underrated? And if there is a serious refutation, what do you think it is?" It's a bit of a leading question, isn't it, Devon? Do you agree that the Nimzowitsch defense is highly underrated? First of all, a good question would have been, do you know what the Nimzowitsch defense is? Because probably my answer would be no. I'm guessing that you don't mean the Nimzo Indian, but you mean e4, knight c6. Am I correct? And do I agree that it's highly underrated? No, I think it's properly rated. Most people think it's kind of playable, but they just play 2 knight f3 and move on with their lives, because after 2 knight f3, clearly in my opinion, the best move is e5, and you can get this position fairly convincingly by playing e4, e5 when 99.9% of the chess playing population would play knight f3 anyway, and you can get that position. So normally the Nimzowitsch specialists, they will do something else here, but then you enter some dodgy territory. You can play f5, but you will be worse. If he knows what he's doing, but it's not going to be a lot of fun. So I probably don't agree that it's highly underrated. Knock yourself out after e4, knight c6. Most players, most grandmasters would just blitz out knight f3 and say, yeah, whatever, I won't bother. After d4, I'm not sure what you have in mind. You didn't give me that much information if you want e5 or d5. As far as I know, it's both of these moves are supposed to be more or less playable. Therefore, yeah, I agree it's highly underrated. I agree it's a decent move. I don't see any real upside. Knight f3. I don't see a good move except for e5. That probably is not the plan. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the Nimzowitsch defense. Scrap 111 is saying, hi Jan. In Peter Svidler's great video series on the Grunfeld, he talks about the anti-Grunfeld one knight f3, where he says that one c5 is objectively the strongest move without giving further explanations. I very much doubt that he said that. Doesn't sound like Peter to say one c5 is objectively the strongest move. That's too absolute a statement. He wouldn't, or I doubt that he would say that. But I can't recall that moment, so I'll take your word for it. However, most of the top players are nowadays just transposing after 2 c4, knight f6 to the 1 knight f3, knight f6 lines. Can you try to explain what the benefits of 1 c5 are? Thanks for the great work. Thank you. If you know that white is gonna go c4, which most 1 knight f3 players would here, then starting with c5 does give you more option. As you said, a lot of people will just transpose to knight f6, c4, c5 here and go knight f6, but you do have the extra option of going knight to c6. Say knight. Black has two systems here that are not possible if you're already committed to knight f6. One of them is e5, as MVL likes to play, can lead to very sharp play. 3 knight f6, let's say d4. How do they do this? They take, go e4, right? Takes, e4. Can lead to messy. I'm not sure if do they go e4 directly? Probably both are being played, e4, d5. Or you play the move g6 in this position, which is also more difficult to establish with a knight already on f6 because you run into quick d4s. But here d4 is a bit of a mistake because of e7. You don't want to go e3, and if you go knight c2, you have to be ready for stuff like this. Takes followed by d6. So my best guess is that Peter meant that after knight f3, c5, you sort of limit, or you sort of keep options here in form of c4, knight c6. Or maybe he also meant, but I'm not sure, that it makes sense that after knight f3, knight f6, you have to deal with some more annoying moves like 2b3 or 2d4. I'm guessing here, I'm not sure what his point was. For example, b3 is probably well met by d6, followed by e5. The obvious drawback of 1 c5, of course, is that you have to be a Sicilian player. People could go 2 e4, and for us 1 e4, e5 players, that's not ideal. By the way, I'm moving in slow motion here. How's the video? Like, on my feed, it looks like something's very, very wrong, and I should probably pause it, right? Very confusing. I'll pause it. This annoys me. We'll be right back with part number 3 of Jan's opening clinic, the ever exciting program where we struggle with both technology and chess openings simultaneously. Fun, fun, fun. We'll continue in just a minute. Welcome back again to Jan's opening clinic, whatever number that this is, part number 3, where hopefully you guys can see me in my full beauty and my full speed of movement again. Because let's face it, this is not like some sort of chess show where some dude just sits there. There's a lot of action in this program, and I believe we should actually shoot this in IMAX, but so far I have not gotten a majority or the budget. However, I will show the guys the Dark Knight Rises opening scene, the plane scene again, which Christopher Nolan shot in IMAX, and convinced them to get me. Is it different cameras? It's different film, right? Whatever. I'm a big expert on this stuff. As we can see, I'm also a big expert on chess openings. So let's get back into it. RWC94 is saying, "Hi Jan. Much of the high-level discussion over the past year or so in the bishop g5 Najdorf has surrounded the following position. e4, c5, knight f3, d4, d4, cd, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop g5, e6, f4, h6, bishop h4, queen b6, a3. What recent developments have caused this to be the main tabia?" Oh, look at you, tabia. In particular, why is black including h6 before playing queen b6, and why is white avoiding the traditional queen takes b2 lines? Apologies for the difficult question. Next time I promise to ask something more interesting, like one e4, e5. Cheers. Oh, a little snarky there in the end, RWC? Why would you do that to me? All I'm doing is trying to help you with your problems. And you have all this talking down to me just because I can't form an English sentence. But I do know the answer to your question. So, in the good old bishop g5 Najdorf, the thing is, after f4, queen b6 used to be the main line. When all these memory contests after queen d2, queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3, let's say e5, whatever, however this goes, takes h6, all of this stuff is supposed to be fine for black, and the world's best players are aware of it. Maybe you start with h6, it's not the point I'm trying to make. Still, this position you could get via the other move order. But it has turned out that after e6, f4, queen b6, queen d3 is a bit of a tricky move to deal with. There has been a recent game, for example, between Messieurs Caruana and Nakamura. So not everybody starts with h6. This is a very recent game. And Nakamura started with this move order. And after queen d3, followed by f5, bishop e7, takes, bishop e2. Here h6 is played. The bishop goes back to d2, for example. And instead, after queen to a5, which of course is a better move, the bishop also drops all the way back to d2, queen c7, g4, h6. All of this is known, and here Caruana had this novelty, rook g1, went on to win a nice game. I'm sure this can be fixed from the theoretical point of view, but bottom line is black started feeling a little uneasy about the many ideas you have to deal with in these types of positions. And they tried to ease their workload a little bit by starting with h6. Their point is after bishop h4, queen b6. These queen d3 lines no longer work as well with the bishop on h4. We just saw the bishop go to d2 in many a line. So here, if you try to do the same thing, then black is in excellent shape, since the bishop is misplaced on h4. Can't reach these diagonals so easily anymore. Therefore, after h6, bishop h4, queen to b6, white had to find new ways to deal with it. And what you don't want to do is play queen d2, transposing to the old nonsense, because here this transposes to the line we just saw. This is a memory competition that black will probably win, like MVL had a game or two here, think against Nair maybe, and he and many others have shown black is pretty much doing well. Therefore, white had to do something else against queen b6, and what they came up with is this a3 business, which only makes sense in the position with h6, bishop h4 included, because now this bishop can drop back to f2, which is a key element of white's plan. And this is where we've seen the recent discussions. One big point of a3, of course, being the queen takes b2, runs into knight a4, trapping the queen. So they normally go bishop e7, and now bishop f2 has been the main line. I think Fabi played this as a one-off in a game against. Who did he play it against? Against MVL in Sinquefield. Got a good position, but I have a feeling we won't see that again either. So I hope that answered your question, RWC. Walter Sobczak. Oh, I should check if anybody can still see me out there. I haven't checked. Is anybody out there? And Brooklyn Bobby is pointing out, how long is this show? Is it opening clinic-a-thon? Yeah, that's the problem. Like these shows, they do take long because we normally close the questioning like 2-3 hours before it starts, so I can take a look at everything in time. But yeah, they take a while. Anyway, Walter Sobczak is saying, hi Jan, with white I play one knight f3 and I am unhappy about the humble 1 g6. Why that? Well, that's a long story. I particularly have problems with the mainline King's Indian with knight f3, d4, c4, knight c3, e4. Opening's fine, but I lose it. But I am successful with g3. So I play knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, g3, and avoid the Grunfeld by playing b3 after c6. See Lecky's repertoire. I think d5 by black without having played d4 should be good for white as well. Against d6, I choose d4, and that's okay for me. So again, knight f3, g6, 2c4, bishop g7, and now 3 d4, knight f6, obviously not. Why obviously? Because after g3 you're afraid of c6 followed by d5. Okay, 3 e4, e5 is good for black, 3 g3, c5, and black has knight c6, and e5, e6, and knight g7. Knight f3, g6, g3, d5 seems also not very promising, as I don't get in my anti-Grunfeld. Remains one knight f3, g6, 2 e4. After 2 c5, I play 3 c4 and Marocci. But after 2 bishop g7, d4, d6, I'm lacking of an ambitious setup. 4 c4 offers not only normal King's Indian, but also trickery with e5, ed4, knight e7, knight c6, which is far from clear to me. I tried to find something with the humble bishop e2, knight f6, knight c3. Maybe you know more. Maybe, probably not. I also looked at bishop c4, knight f6, queen e2, but people play some muddy hippo stuff like a6, b6, e6, bishop b7, and I miss my pawn on c4 or f4 or simple knight c6 and e5. Also castles e5, d, e, knight d5 looks not very frightening for black. Everything seems comfortable for black. Maybe I'm wrong in some statements. Maybe you've got something inspiring for me. Wow, that was a long read, but I actually understand your problems, believe it or not. So no, I don't really have an answer for you. Knight f3, g6. It's a bit of a bluff by Grunfeld players. g6 works very nicely against anything but 2 e4. So you gotta call that bluff and go 2 e4 indeed. Because almost no Grunfeld player will really be comfortable playing this and pretending to be a Pierz player as well. So normally you should already consider this to be an achievement. As for what system to play here, I don't know. Like I normally alternate between knight c3, c4. I have a soft spot for this system. Maybe this system is something for you, could fit with your style. It's not the most ambitious system in the world either. But I don't know, I would thought white might be slightly better here. And you're not, you're maybe getting black players out of their custom setups. I don't have any grand ideas. I probably want to go c3, knight d2, knight f1, knight g3 if left alone. It's not so easy for black to resolve this, like knight c6 is the main line, c3, e5, h3. For example, rook e8 and big novelty, bishop c2, because after knight bd2, I think d5 equalizes, so something like bishop d2. And play is more similar in spirit to some gioco piano business, which I'm not sure is if it's your cup of tea, but it's a playable-ish line that maybe makes things a little different. If you don't like that, yeah, I think you already know the places to look. Bishop c4 is a decent move. Knight c3, followed by bishop e3 or by bishop e2 is also decent systems. So, bottom line, consider it a victory if you force dudes into a pierce and take it from here. St. Peter is recommending something similar for c3, yeah, similar to this bishop d3 stuff. Not the most exciting of lines, but playable, as said. Who's next? Carlson Superlight is saying, I'm age 29, rated 1400, and don't like to spend a lot of time on the opening. Fair enough. Would you say playing the Trompowsky and Budapest Gambit are sound opening choices? Trompowsky, yes. Budapest Gambit, no. Or should I play mainline d4 openings and the Nimzo? Many thanks. Maybe we can meet in the middle. You play the Trompowsky and the Nimzo. Does that sound acceptable? Yeah, that would be my suggestion. If the Nimzo is too theoretical, maybe find something a little better than the Budapest and, I don't know, a little less theoretical. I don't know, maybe the Chigorin. Maybe the Chigorin is your cup of tea. I have a feeling the Chigorin and you can become great friends. Go knight c6, knight f3, you go bishop g4, then try to get the pieces out. After knight c3, you take here, and it all becomes very messy. And after cd, queen d5, e3, e5, knight c3, bishop b4, you develop very quickly and hope for the best. And so that's what I want you to play. I want you to play the Nimzo and the Chigorin. I'm half tongue-in-cheek, of course. I normally recommend any mainline, the Nimzo. No, not the Nimzo and the Chigorin, the Trompowsky and the Chigorin. Normally, of course, I'd recommend any mainline, the Grunfeld, the King's Indian, the Nimzo, the whatever. But what matters most is that we don't lose the fun of playing chess, the joy, because it's such a joyful experience, isn't it? That's why we're hanging out here. What's next? Ted Lawyer is saying, Hi Jan, thanks for your opening clinic. Is quite helpful and insightful. My question is about the Evans Gambit. Recently I've encountered it a few times after not facing it for many years. It's back. After e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, b4, bishop b4, c3. What do you think is the best way for black to neutralize any white initiative? Thanks in advance for your answer. I think at the top level they sort of stopped doing it. It had a brief 15 minutes of fame again. But nowadays it seems like dudes more or less agree that bishop a5, d4, d6 is just rocky solid for black, and there's very little you can do about it. Queen b3, queen to d7. Looks a little odd, but it just holds up nicely. And I have a feeling that's what everybody should do and will do, since a lot of the top players have already thrown their hat in that ring. Caruana has played it, Anand has played it, and white hasn't shown anything. So that's what I think you should do. Castles, you go bishop b6, knight a5 is a threat, and white has very little to show. Bishop b5 looks scary at first sight after a6, bishop a4. Looks like d5 is coming, winning a piece. But you have bishop a7, very important. You can meet d5 with b5, and you win your piece back. There's some theory surrounding it, but honestly, not that much. So I suggest you do that. Well, DE, you also go bishop b6. Always a key move. Threatening knight a5 again. There's some stuff like this. This is a game. Rufeng Li against Caruana. But after f6, followed by queen f7, black was doing well there as well. So go bishop a5, bishop b6, d6, queen d7, and you'll be in good shape. Illusion is saying, "Hi Jan, great show, but you knew that." I honestly did not know that. In the book Zoom 001, must have missed that, by Larsen and Zuten, they try to teach you a structure where you try to play against an isolated b-pawn, d-pawn, or at least a fluid center with a fianchetto. For example, as black the Grunfeld, as white Catalan, Queen's Indian, and so on. Alright, I'm not sure I got the whole picture, but let's proceed. My question is that they say versus e4 you play d5, ed, knight f6, and then set up a kingside fianchetto. Wow, they cover a lot of ground in that book, don't they? They give you a white repertoire, a black repertoire against e4, against d4. Boom. The problem is, if you cover that much ground, sometimes you have to take some shortcuts. So, as an example, e4, d5, ed, knight f6, d4, knight d5, c4, knight b6, knight f3, g6, etc. Is there anything off the top of your head that discredits the 2 knight f6 line of the center counter, since all the research today seems to be on 2 queen takes d5? I don't know, this line you're giving doesn't sound very convincing, does it? And since you're asking, you might already have some small doubts about it yourself. So e4, d5, ed, knight f6, d4, knight takes d5. How did this go? c4, knight b6 here. It's probably precise to go knight f3, because knight c3 there's e5, which seems to more or less work. But after knight f3, g6, well, it's just better, right? Knight c3, bishop g7, c5, knight d5, bishop c4. I don't think this line is supposed to be good for black. c6, queen b3, or short castles. Let's say queen b3. It looks like, yeah, black is just under pressure from a very early point in the game on. So I would, yeah, not recommend this line. Then again, it doesn't lose, and I understand that. In the spirit of saving time, creating a consistent repertoire, you, yeah, might want to do something like this. But I don't really trust it for black. Captain Coca-Cola, CCC, saying, "Hello Jan, thank you for doing another opening clinic. This time, I'd like to get your thoughts from White's point of view against the Danish Gambit." As usual, by the way, it's easier for me if you just give me the moves instead of the names, because I struggle with names. Like earlier with the Nimzovich variation, I wasn't sure. The Danish Gambit, I'm assuming that's e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, f5. So I'll operate on the assumption. Could you recommend a line for white which, even if there's no advantage, prevents black's active ideas while not being too theoretical? As always, thanks for your work. I've not been able to use the internet a lot recently, but hopefully it will change soon. What are you doing with your life, Captain Coca-Cola? You're not on the internet? I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully you will soon be back to the wonderful world out there that is social networks and who else is on the internet? I've been told there's, I don't know, chess sites, social networks. That's really all I know about the internet. And what was the question again? I got distracted. A recommendation for white against the Danish. As usual, and probably that's why we should at some point bring an e4 player in to make an opening clinic. I'm not an e4 player, so I've spent precious little time on my white repertoire against the Danish. The main line is for d3, but I have a feeling you don't want that since you didn't want too theoretical. So what's untheoretical? Bishop takes c6, I believe, is a playable move. dc, knight to c3. After knight f6, you go queen e2. And what they do, I believe, Carlsen again with fe, knight e4, bishop g4, which looks slightly better for white. h3, you take, whatever. The black structure is a little crippled, so this seems fine. Instead, after queen e2, they can play bishop d6. When you go d4, ed, e5, and it gets a little messy. After dc, ef, king f8, takes, castles. I'd rather take white with this very open king. So there's a random sideline that I think is playable for you. Not the one, I'm not sure if this qualifies as a sideline, but knight c3 is also fairly solid. That's the main thing with it. Always looks cool. Oh my god, I'm gonna go f5 and I'll have all this active play. But then if you look at any of the lines, you will see that you're fighting for equality in some slightly unpleasant endgames. So, or wherever. So here, this is another line that's fairly playable. Queen e2, bishop e7, you take. And, well, it's one of the main lines. Black is supposed to survive with his two bishops. But how much fun he has along the right could also be debated. Both dc and bc are possible here. But if anybody's better, it's white. So I hope that helped you out. And yeah, good luck fighting against the Yanish. Not a very popular opening. Chess Analyst is saying, "Hi Jan, hope I'm not late for this one, but if I am, so be it. Yeah, it's getting late for me, but might as well soldier on now that we're here. I'm helping several students with opening issues, and this one is from a student, and also something I have problems facing too. So the line goes d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, and now the move I'm beginning to hate a lot, bishop b4. It's kind of strange to play it here, but as far as I can tell, it works. Does this mean I should abandon knight c3 and start with knight f3 first? P.S. I like fianchetto setups. Is this just you or your student as well? Against pretty much everything. King's Indian g3 without e4 and Grunfalz without e4 and with g3 bishop g2. Never been a Catalan player, but maybe I should. Maybe, if you like fianchetto setups against pretty much everything, that sounds like a fairly logical step to me. I think I've answered the question earlier already. I'm not sure if this is your cup of tea, but the most critical try against bishop b4 is to go a3 and then try to get this classical Botvinnik Capablanca style business, bishop d3, knight e2, and so on and so forth. And yeah, if you can't bear the thought of that. But to avoid bishop b4, which no one ever plays, to start with knight f3 sounds a bit strong to me. Because knight f3 has its drawbacks as well. Like the Karlsbad variation becomes a lot less powerful with the knight on f3 array. So yeah, I'm surprised there's so many questions about this move, bishop b4, which in my long, illustrious chess career, playing 1d4 pretty much exclusively, I've never faced that move. But maybe the times, they are changing. It's probably not true. I probably faced it like once or twice. ChessFan123. Hello Jan, first of all, thanks for your valuable help in improving my opening repertoire. You're very welcome, ChessFan123. I have a question concerning the Queen's Indian defense. What do you suggest Black to play in the line d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, g3, bishop a6, 5 knight bd2? What are Black's plans and how could one also fight for a win? Because we want to fight for a win. Not all these draws after 5 moves. So let's do what the experts do, no? In general, I appreciate that you respect my opinion. But in the Queen's Indian, let's say, which I never play, just look whatever Karjakin does and follow it. And as far as I know, after knight b2, having lured this knight here, now most of the experts go bishop b7, bishop to g2, bishop to e7, castles, castles. And take it from there. After queen c2, threatening e4, they will go d5. And I believe there's still all the pieces left on the board, so we can play for a win. The logic is this structure is supposed to be a little shady, but the knight on d2 is really misplaced. Misplaced enough to make me want to play knight b1 followed by knight c3 here. Well, if they play a more natural move like knight e5, c5. Black is supposed to be alright. Therefore, I believe that's what you should be doing against this knight b2 line. Of course, there's many other options, but that seems to be the one most en vogue. Breaker90 is asking, which variation of the Ruy Lopez do you recommend? Of the Ruy Lopez closed do you recommend for black? Well, I'm not quite sure what the definition of Ruy Lopez closed is. Like, I am a Marshall and Arkhangelsk player or whatever. So I'm not sure if those qualify as Ruy Lopez closed. If they do, I recommend them wholeheartedly. Check out Peter Svidler's video series on this business and check out, for example, my video series on this stuff. Castles c3, d5. If the closed implies that we have to go d6, c3 castles, h3, then I don't know what I'd do here. Probably knight b8 followed by knight bd7, bishop b7. The Briar, but I've never done it, so I'm not sure what I would recommend, since I play the Marshall or the Arkhangelsk pretty exclusively. Baljier says, hi Jan, is the variation knight f3, knight f6, c4, c5, knight c3, d5, cd, knight d5, e4, knight b4, bishop c4, knight d3, king e2, knight f4, king f1, knight e6, b4 still playable for black? I thought it was pretty grim, but in recent live commentary on Chess24 after c4, c5, knight f3, knight f6, the commentator remarked, white better have something after 3 d5. Cheers, Jan B. Who was the commentator? Was I the commentator? Anyway, let's back up to this point. e4 is one of the moves here. But yeah, Aronian recently played a lot of e3, so you can see people don't consider e4 an automatic win. I believe the main reason nowadays is that, well, that it's not as popular, is that the move knight to d3 back here is a roadblock. Svidler is playing this, and others have done it too. Caruana, Giri, I don't know. Probably more people. So knight e6 is out of fashion, probably for a good reason, and knight d3 is in fashion. So unless you can crack knight d3, you might be reluctant to go here with white, and I have no idea what white should do. After knight d3 it looks fine to me. After knight e6 I agree that b4 is the most critical try. There was a game, where was it? Aronian Topalov, which Aronian won nicely, right? I have an novelty for you here. You can play the move g5, which probably doesn't save the day, but it's an interesting enough little idea. g6 is a more common move, but g5 at least gives us the added dimension that we can push this knight around by going g4 at some points. So I'm not sure I recommend this, but it's a cute little line. After bishop b2, g4. Things might not be too clear. Still, if you're asking for my recommendation, I would recommend going knight d3 here. Objectively, of course, white can repeat moves. Then you might need a different plan, because we want to play for a win. Father Jack is saying, hi Jan, really appreciate what you guys do at Chess24 to popularize the game worldwide. Thank you. I'm sorry if I sound less enthusiastic. I appreciate it. I'm just very tired from answering all these questions. Should probably break up these opening clinics, but yeah, that's why they're tough to do. They just take too long if you take them seriously. Because I've also been preparing for the questions. Anyway, a lot of whining when your job is clicking random computer buttons and then talking about chess moves. It's a hard knock life. My question is about helping a junior who I coach. What system should they play versus the French defense? As he doesn't have a lot of time or willpower to study, school exams, etc. So you're calling out your student in, well, public is strong, but here and saying he has a lack of willpower, won't that hurt his feelings if he reads this? Anyway, he plays the exchange variation, which drives me crazy. I advise to play the King's Indian attack with 2 d3 or 2 queen e2 and said it could also be useful versus other defenses. For example, Sicilian with 2e6, Caro-Can, etc. What do you think? Is this or the advanced variation a better offbeat system for white? Thanks. This is the opening clinic, and I'm not a fan of offbeat systems generally. So if you're asking for my opinion, try an onbeat system. Why not play a serious line, like the serious student that he is? In my opinion, knight c3 and knight d2 are both equally playable main lines. For stylistic reasons, I would slightly prefer knight d2 because these knight c3 positions after bishop b4 or even knight f6 are so French specific that I find them tough to understand, while knight d2, c5, ed. I believe this is an IQP structure that will always be useful to sort of understand. And queen d5 is also a structure you can get out of all kinds of openings, here dc5 or knight f3, or even knight f3 instead of ed5. There's a video series by our dear friend Lawrence Trent explaining the Tarrasch to you. All the other lines here, they sound like cop-outs, but to go from one cop-out like the exchange to another one like the, whatever it's called, King's Indian attack or queen e2, does not strike me as that ambitious an idea either. I understand, like, people are always afraid, oh no, but my opponents will know every single detail if I play a normal line. But unfortunately, that is the way forward. So, best of luck to you and your student, Father Jack. Bishop g7 is asking, what is a good variation against the King's Indian defense from white's point of view for a positional player? Oh, if I only knew bishop g7. That sounds like you're a King's Gambit, King's Indian fan yourself, because you're called bishop g7, right? Yeah, that's a bit broad of a question. We earlier mentioned two systems, the Sokolov system, the bishop e2, bishop e3 business is interesting. Also, since you specifically mentioned you're a positional player, so you like to get a good position. I'm guessing that's what positional player means. I don't know, the g3 systems are quite positional, right? You don't get checkmated so early. And yeah, maybe try this. Try the Soki system. Look quite positionally sound to me as well. Go d5 and then g4. You grab all this space. I hope these systems will bring you lots of success, Mr. Bishop to g7. Haima saying, hi Jan, thanks for doing this opening clinic. You're very welcome. My question is, how should white play against this line in the Nimzo? d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, e3, 5 knight bd2. I'm guessing you mean 5 knight g e2, rook to e8. Somehow it's hard to find a line for white that gives something to play for. Thanks, Haima. Yeah, it's not supposed to give anything, in fairness. So, while I hear your point, I have a limited amount of sympathy. Because the line, it's playable, but it's not supposed to, like, give you a crushing opening advantage. The idea is more to keep pieces on the board and have a look around, right? In my video series, I gave c6 here, while mentioning that rook e8 and d5 are perfectly fine as well. Against rook e8, what they normally do, but I agree, it's not very inspiring. Like, currently they play knight g3, d5, bishop e2, and try to get some tiny edge in some position like this. But as I said, I also don't think that's all that interesting. The ambitious move to play is d5 here, and I'm not sure it gives white an edge, but I probably, having played e3, knight g2, I would go for d5 to punish black for omitting d5 and going for this luxury solution with rook e8, bishop f8. There are some moves here, like, I don't know, a5, you go knight g3, followed by bishop e2, and d6, you go g3. I'm not saying white is better, but that is the way to try to fight for an advantage in this position. If you don't do that, I agree with you. White is nothing special. Black has arranged his pieces harmoniously. He's now ready to play d5. Black should be fine. Crispy Ambulance is saying, sorry Jan, posted this in the wrong column. Do we have different columns? I don't understand how stuff works. Everyone is trying lines to avoid the Marshal. 5d3, 6d3, as well as the usual anti-systems. But why is the exchange Spanish so out of favor? Too many defenses to learn or analyze after 5 castles, bishop g4, f6, bishop d6, knight e7, etc. with only the tiniest edge, or is there one proven way to equalize that the top GMs would play? Even say players like Mickey Adams, who can guarantee will play a6, used to be tested in the exchange Spanish, but hardly anyone at the top takes the opportunity. Would it be worth trying it as white at the club level though? Yeah, I've kind of answered or rambled about that question earlier. Yeah, I think the exchange Spanish is a sensible opening. I've always had a healthy amount of respect for it. The problem is the one you and also the previous caller pointed out. Black has around 18,000 moves here, so you gotta factor that in if you want to play it with white at the club level. Are you really saving yourself time if you need to deal with bishop d6, knight e7, queen f6, queen d6, bishop g4? I'm sure I'm forgetting one of the moves again, bishop e6, bishop e7. All of those playable. But I do think this is a sound exchange, and it makes sense. You give black a double pawn, exploit the fact that he's wasted some time. So I don't think there is one move all the top GMs will play. I've talked about this earlier. I think it's hard to go wrong here since all the moves are playable. And if you look at recent top GM games, I think it will be a broad mix across the spectrum of playable moves. Bishop e7, bishop d6, bishop e6, knight e7, queen f6, queen d6, bishop g4. I'm fairly sure all these moves will be featured in your research. So yeah, play it. I think it's a playable opening. I don't think it's been refuted. Conte Yellow is asking, hi Jan, I would really like to include the Italian in my repertoire, giving it a chance to become as super powerful as my Scotch Gambit. Wow, lofty goals there. I started studying John M's move order in Beating e4, e5. I see. In the first chapters, The Modern, it features an early knight excursion from b1 to g3. Such as in T. Yakov Sargsyan 2004. Yep, line. Yet I see today most players prefer to castle first with white. As early as on the 6th move. Actually, as early as on the 4th move normally. What are the pros and cons of both systems? Is there a specific line white should be afraid by sending his knight to an early exotic trip? Thanks a lot, Conte Yellow. Yeah, they used to play your knight maneuver in the old days when the Italian was still easy to deal with. But now things have gotten a lot tougher with all these early castles, d3, a4 systems. So which move order do we have this in? Something like this, right? Knight f1. Yeah, this is just equal d5, queen e2, and bishop e6 is stronger than what you gave, even though what you gave probably should equalize to. But bishop e6 just more or less kills the line, and whatever you do. Bishop g5 takes. Queen d6, the queen goes to e6, then knight e8, followed by knight d6. Sometimes they try to resurrect this, but it's pretty much nothing. So, yeah, don't do that. Play what the good guys do. I understand it's boring to be mainstream, but it's better. It's a better line and asks more questions. Go for this, castles, play a4, and then go c3. And then later on, maybe you can do your little knight dance. That, I believe, is the best way to play the Italian nowadays. Triple center pawn. How many more questions do we have left, by the way? I need to go home at some point. Anyway, I'll hang out there. I'll hang in there. Triple center pawn is saying, hello Jan. Here is a special variant in the Benko with 7h4 and 8 knight h3. d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, b5, cba6, b8, bishop a6, knight c3, d6, h4, g6, knight h3, bishop g7, knight f4, h5, g3, knight b7, queen c2, castles, bishop h3. It's not mentioned in common opening databases, including Chess24 or chess literature, as far as I know. What could be the reason? Why have people not documented more 7h4s in the Benko? I am not sure, triple center pawn. But looks like we're about to fill that blank spot in chess documentation. A fellow on FIDE master level, I'm not all at, from my local chess club, likes to play it with white and blitz games to try to surprise opponents. Does he surprise them every time, or are you onto him by now? Is it also solid for classical games, in your opinion? Or is there a refutation, a better move for black? Any cons for white? Thanks in advance, triple center pawn. A short cautionary tale. There was the game Topalov-Giri, where Topalov played the move h4 here in this position. Giri thought for a little bit, and then he decided which opening would h4 be the most ridiculous in, and he thought the Benko Gambit, and he played c5, d5, b5, cba6, and got an excellent position against Topalov. I believe Topalov drew the game in the end, but he had to suffer a lot. So to go h4 deliberately strikes me as very bold. However, in that game, Giri went bishop g7, not for bishop a6, so it's not exactly as in your line. Still, food for thought. So, takes bishop a6, knight c3, d6. I don't know, h4 does not really feel like a priority here, does it? It feels like g3, bishop g2, or e4 are more pressing concerns. After h4, g6, knight a3, bishop g7, knight f4, I wouldn't play h5. I don't really think we're gonna get checkmated here by white going h5, so I would probably try a move like queen a5, threatening knight e4. You have to go bishop d2, knight bd7, and then try to orchestrate counterplay a little more quickly. Because h5, it's a bit of an ugly move to make structurally. It justifies his knight on f4. We can never break the structure anymore by going e5, because then after de6, g6 would always be weak. So I'm not a big fan of your h5 move there. Then the line continues something like this, where I'm still not exactly sold that this was the best use of white's time to put the knight on f4, the pawn on h4. But at least it looks like we're getting the pieces out with a typical Benko middle game ahead. But yeah, as I said, h5, I'm not so sure that's necessary. So yeah, it's a cute idea, and thanks for pointing it out. I probably would not play it, but it's less bad than it looks. Shmuliki is saying, hello Jan. First, thanks for your and all the others' great work on Chess24. I play with black the triangle Nottebohm, but I have some problems after d4, d5, c4, e6, knight f3, c6, knight bd2. I saw Sopiko's series about it. She recommends to play f5 and move to the Dutch defense, which I don't like, and preferred to just play for knight f6. But somehow I struggle to find good answers for two possible setups for white. g3 bishop g2 castles or e3 bishop d3 castles. Do you have any ideas against these two setups? Thanks. Not really, unfortunately. No, I understand your problem, but I don't have the cure. And I think probably if you want to play the triangle, you should follow Sopiko's advice there, because you already committed your pawn to c6, which I never do in this position. I always play knight f6. And then after knight c3, I'm willing to play c6, play the semi-Slav. But I am not willing to play these lines after queen c2 or knight bd2, because like you, I don't like moving my f-pawn that much. But here, after knight f6, we just committed to the move c6. That is not ideal in most of the g3 bishop g2 lines. Not saying white is winning here, but it's not a dream. So don't really have any great advice there. Against e3, knight bd7, bishop d3, bishop d6, castle, castle. I believe this is supposed to be tenable for black, right? After e4 you can go e5, and you're supposed to survive after a lot of stuff happens in the center. But it's also not the sexiest of lines. So having played the triangle, I would probably bite the bullet and go f5 here. Then again, I probably wouldn't play the triangle, I probably would play this. Then you have to deal with the Catalan, of course, but at least you haven't committed your pawn to c6 yet. And after knight c3, you can still go c6 if you feel the rush. And thanks for your question. Oh boy, are we halfway through? How long have I been doing this? Like 3.5 hours? Opening clinics are tough. Dr. Boki is saying, "Hi Jan, I have a question in the Catalan main line. 7 queen c2, 8 a4, and then 10 bishop f4, bishop d6. Which is your recommendation in your Catalan series?" Wow, in bold, just to remind me, this is what you said. Ding beat Levan Aronian with 13 bishop d2 in Sharjah in 2017. What do you think of this game? How to play it with black? Thanks a lot. Let's bring up the good old Catalan. Le Catalan, as we call it in Catalonia. That's a lie. So far, so good, Dr. Boki. Big Catalan specialist. By the way, it seems like people are slightly concerned about this queen c1 move. So I've noticed that none other than Vladimir Kramnik recently played knight bd7, and only after knight c3 he went bishop d6, and he equalized quite effortlessly against Levan Aronian. So, food for thought. Having said that, I am here to defend my line. Bishop d6, queen c1, a5, knight c3, knight a6. Here bishop d2 was played. My computer says go h6. I think in the game Levan went knight b4, and then after queen b1, e4 is an unpleasant threat, so you had to take here. Probably wasn't too thrilled about it. So my very wise computer says h6. Just to stop any shenanigans on g5. If rook e1, you go knight e4. And if queen b1, now you go bishop b4, just fighting against e4. Because if white were to play e4 now, we could take and take. And if white tries to prepare it, what was I going to say? We can probably take the pawn, no? Yeah, we can take the pawn. So that strikes me as a fairly logical way to arrange your pieces against that. I hope that helps Dr. Boki. Hitzetnuk is saying, sorry for bungling that name, now that Magnus has played it to beat Kramnik, I'm afraid the bird 1f4 is going to become the new London system. I would not be as afraid as you, Hitzetnuk. I think that's been a one-off. How would you recommend to meet it at 2000 level so that black keeps some winning chances? Again, we gotta keep these winning chances because after f4, the drawing tendencies are so high already. Nah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun of that request. We all want to keep winning chances. It's just, always curious to me that that's often the first thing on people's mind. After 1f4, how can I stop the game from drying out here? In particular, do you think Reindermann's one knight h6 works against the various reverse Dutch setups? Thank you for your help. I'm very confused by the question. So, what is your question? After 1f4, how do we keep winning chances? Kramnik was better in that game, by the way. So even what Kramnik did, d5, knight f6, he played e6, which is a bit offbeat for offbeat Dutch standards. He played e6 and then some early b5, I think bishop e7, castles b5, something there. Very interesting. Went for an early bishop b7. And he got an advantage out of the opening. And then he later went on to lose that game because Magnus is pretty decent, rapid, and generally chess player, I believe is fair to say. So what Kramnik did wasn't bad. I've also always argued that you can just play the reverse main line here. Whatever, and then depending on what white does, it's hard to find an edge here. Like, I talked to Svidler about this, who's played this once with white. He said it's almost like you're in Zugzwang here with white and black. Yeah, he's doing fine, which is no surprise. Why went for freaking f4? So your question is f4, knight h6 to keep winning chances? Or, I don't know, wouldn't be the first thing on my mind to go knight h6 here. Like, you can probably justify it later if you're in time to get on d5 followed by g6. But it still looks like you're really testing the limits of what half nonsensical move can I play against one f4 and still get a decent position. Here in particular b3, I would guess. Prepare bishop b2. I don't know. Knight h6, yeah. Wouldn't be the first thing on my mind. Just as one knight h3 wouldn't be the first thing on my mind. Even though probably white is not seriously worse after it. Actually, f4 knight h6 is better than one knight h3 because this bishop's way got blocked. But I don't know what you want me to say. By all means, play knight h6. You will keep winning chances on 2000 level, but you will also keep winning chances by playing d5, g6, c5, b6, b5, e6, knight f6, knight c6. So yeah, one f4, I don't think it's a big cause for concern. K Storn is saying, hey Jan, I've seen many of your video series and appreciate your work. My question is, what is your recommendation against the Queen's Gambit accepted? I've tried 3 knight f3, and after c5, e3, cd, bishop c4, queen c7, queen b3, e6. But seems rather equal. Is there another way to play that offers more of an opening advantage? Thanks. There is another way to play that offers more of an opening advantage. And that other way is... First of all, that's a very specific line you're giving. After 3 knight f3, c5 is very, very far from being the main line. Like, you will face knight f6 or a6 a lot more often than you're going to face c5 here. But since that's what you're asking about, d5 is a move, but I also enjoy playing e3 here. cd, bishop c4, queen c7, and this position, bishop b3 is stronger, in my very humble opinion, than queen b3. It's a pawn sacrifice, so you gotta be willing to do that, but you're asking for the way to get an opening advantage here. That is bishop to b3. Takes, bishop takes, then you go knight c3, castles, rook c1. The white initiative is surprisingly powerful. The main line is something like this. Queen a5, knight d6, check, check. Knight f4, queen f5, blah, blah, blah. This is a game, amongst others, Yusupov against Magem. Magem was a big proponent of this setup for black. But here, the 2 bishops for white, combined with the black king still being in the center, provide more than adequate compensation. So I think white is better here. And that's what I would be doing. De Henker is saying, suppose you were asked to pick a mandatory opening for a themed tournament. Which opening do you think you'd choose for maximum entertainment value, given that the initial mandatory position should be more or less balanced? Cheers. I don't know. Some sexy Petrov line maybe? More or less balanced. It's probably hard to achieve in the King's Gambit. But it's entertainment value, right? They used to have a lot of themed tournaments on stuff like this. Why not uphold the tradition? I think in the old days, yeah, people liked holding tournaments on this. And here, I think some dude liked to invite masters and then make them play this line, which he himself invented. Castles is a bit much, but maybe you can go for this position after d4, which is very rich and complex, and I'm sure everybody in your themed tournament will have a great time with the King's Gambit. Or you could use a position that I find very interesting, which is this one. Lots of options, roughly balanced. I think white has a tiny advantage. So yeah, that would probably be my main choice. Bad for Life is saying, "Hey Jan, thanks for your great work here. I hope to get a chance to flag you again in Bullet." Oh, get your brag out of the way. Which line would you play with black in the Pierce main line with early 6e5? Niklas' recommendation, if you need to play for a win with black. And what do you like best? What do you like best objectively? Greetings, Bad. First of all, I'm not quite sure what we're talking about, but I'll make an educated guess. It's always easier if you give me moves, or even better, a diagram, because the Pierce main line with 6e5, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's this line. Knight f3 castles and now e5, at least that's move 6. I don't know, I believe I would go d takes e5 under any circumstances, because that's probably the best move. And after f3, go knight to d5. I must admit, I'm not familiar with Niklas's work here. Something like this looks rather playable. And after de, I think queen d1, knight d1, knight d5 is supposed to be fine for black, right? His bishop looks a little silly, but it will probably get freed eventually. So I would do that. And I hope I interpreted your question correctly. Magnet829 is saying, "Hi Jan, I enjoy all your Banter Blitz shows, lectures, etc. Thank you. My question, QP opening, Tarrasch defense type pawn structure. Queen's pawn, okay. Can you explain the best moves for white when there are pawns on white c4 and d4 and black d5 and c5? It does not seem automatic for white to capture c takes d5. What are the strategies involved? Thanks and best wishes, Magnet8229. Tough question. Once again, I normally struggle with strategies. I'm better with moves. Because, yeah, especially the structure you're giving, I'm not quite sure. It sounds like a high tension structure with pawns d4, c4 versus pawns d5, c5. But you mentioned Tarrasch, so probably we're talking something like this. I would take on d5 ASAP here. And yeah, this is the Tarrasch main line. Because if you don't do that, if you go knight f3, then black can normally use the tension in the center to his advantage. So, more often than not, I would guess you take on d5 quickly. And here, after knight f3, knight c6, g3 used to be the main move to fianchetto this bishop and finish development. That's the strategy. Then later, target the pawn. Nowadays, there's also a lot of early d takes c5, just to take this pawn as quickly as possible. After d4, knight a4 is supposed to be good for white. So, or good for white is strong, but quite playable for white. So I'm not sure if that is what you were talking about. If you meant 2c5, I'm also not sure what to do. I guess cd, queen d5, knight f3, cd, knight c3 is a line. Little trick. But once again, I'm talking moves, not strategies. Because I struggle with the good old strategies. Another question. Elias Stern Rodriguez is saying, "Hello, Jan. Can you discuss the following line of the Nimzo? d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, e3 castles." I believe this is an opportune time to take a bit of a shortcut, because I spent, I believe, 3 videos of my Nimzo series discussing that very position after e3 castles. So I would like to redirect you to that series of mine, Elias Stern Rodriguez. Click on learn or search for me or for Nimzo and you'll find it. It will cover all of white's options and which one is considered best, what are black's replies to white's options. And it will hopefully give you a repertoire for a more positional player rated around 2050. Around 2050? It's always very suspicious when people say around, because normally we round up a little, don't we, Elias? And play this line as black. So I'm particularly interested in the more positional responses from black side. Thanks so much. Yeah, check out my video series. I hope you will find some positional responses in there. Openings King is saying, Dear Jan, it's strange when Openings King asks question about opening. But what are you gonna do? Okay, here is my question. Very often I faced French defense. My choice is 3e5. I know full theory about that. Full theory. Must be nice. But very often they can equalize. What is your recommendation? Should I change my repertoire against French? And if yes, where can I find good theory about that? I really love your recommendation. Thank you. Yes, Luke, you should change your repertoire. Now that you've exhausted 3e5, start playing 3 knight d2. You can find theory in, I believe, Lawrence Trent's video series right here on Chess24. Will hopefully teach you all you need to know about 3 knight to d2. John De Lemos, thanks for talking me up. Cicerone saying, Hi Jan, I'm a great fan of your work, especially your new video series on meeting d4. Thank you, Cicerone. Recently I faced the Leningrad Dutch with d4, f5, c4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, castles d6, knight c3, c6. Apologies for the move order issues, that's fine. I looked at it a lot, in particular after 8b3, but couldn't find any path to a real advantage, as black's defenses seem to be holding up. Could you give me some advice on how to meet this, please? Thanks in advance and keep up the good work. Thank you. Well, first of all, one should always consider it a blessing if your opponent plays the Leningrad Dutch, because I've talked about this ad nauseum. Why would you weaken your king's position while not developing anything on move number 1? I will never understand. Anyway, many a line can be played. I think b3 is a pretty good line, so would have been nice had you given me a bit more context or a detail. What bothered you? I'm not sure. Yeah, there's lines here, queen a5, knight a6, rook b8, queen c7, and so on. But I think white has pretty good chances in all these lines. If you don't like them anymore, you can also give rook b1 a shot. That's also a pretty good move. Preparing to push your b pawn up the board. And if you go b4 immediately, e5 is a move, so they prepare with rook b1. Even though this e5 takes e4, white is also slightly better. Hard to go wrong in the Leningrad, but rook b1 is an interesting move. When, yeah, there's some Kramnik games here and some games by many strong players, Yakovenko as well, knight e4, queen c2. It's very interesting stuff. a5 looks like the move of choice here recently, when white has had some success playing queen b3, followed by rook d1. Long story short, just choose a move. I think b3 is fine. I think rook b1 is fine. Whatever line you prepare here, you'll be doing all right. At least, I hope so. What else is going on? Kiran is saying, Hi Jan, TLDR, keep up the good work. I greatly enjoy your work. Thanks. Technically, not a question. As a good weapon against 1e4, I think the Petrov is a bit underrated at the lower levels. I checked the C24 database, which is quite useful, so big thanks. Thank you for the latest outings in the Petrov. This is confusing to me. I can't do the stats, so you're saying black is doing fine results-wise recently is what I'm guessing? Even though I see a bunch of minuses. I don't know, what is this? Like -2 or something overall? Sounds about normal. And what's the conclusion? Yeah, black is Petrov's back, is that your conclusion? Curiously, out of 39 games, 28 have been played by the Chinese squad. Is Petrov back in business? I don't think it's that curious, the Chinese. They often play similar openings, and they are one big camp of Petrov experts nowadays, with most of their top players employing it. You just had them on the screen there. I always thought the Petrov was a good opening. It was slightly out of fashion for a while, due to this knight c3, which really bothered players from the black side, because it seemed easier to play with white. But it looks like black is finding ways to cope with this. I have to admit, I also lack expertise, and sometimes there is new problems on the horizon for the black players as well, like Grishuk now won a nice game against Yu Yangyi. But generally, it seemed to me like, I'll mix up the move order. Like this setup with Queen d7, followed by a6 and long castles, was more or less holding. And yeah, the Chinese top players have done a decent job doing that. That's why the Petrov is back in business. Some are also fooling around with going knight back to f6 here even. So yeah, I always thought the Petrov was a decent opening. It's probably not popular at the lower levels because it's not very sexy and you have to deal with lines like this. But at high levels, as a playable opening and another roadblock in white's way, in the spirit of the Berlin or the Marshall, it is very much back in business if it's ever been gone. Like Vladimir Kramnik put it on the map, then moved on to the Berlin. But it looks like the Chinese guys, Anish Giri to some extent, and I'm sure others will appear, like Caruana recently started playing a lot of Petrov, will, keep it in business. And yeah, you're right, it's doing fine. Danotello is saying, my rating is around 1800, and I have recently started studying the Berlin endgame as white. Don't do it, it's tedious work. But soon I began to doubt white's winning chances in there. Of course my opponents are not so well prepared on this level, but for now I lack techniques to convert a slight advantage in endgame to a full point. Which do you think is better, study the Berlin endgame more deeply or go for something else? Like 4d3. By all means, play 4d3. If you're 1800, don't spend your time like analyzing the Berlin endgame. Don't do it. Go for d3. Or play the Gioco Piano, jump on the Italian bandwagon. But no, don't spend time analyzing the Berlin. 4d3 is one line you can play. Another is castles, knight e4, rook e1. This is very easy to play. Knight d6 you take, bishop e7. You go back and then you try to, bring your pieces to the queen, to the king side, build an initiative. White is normally slightly better in these things as well. Of course, very drawish, but that's an option. And 4d3, very much an option too. Monty saying, hi Jan, thanks for all the fun stuff that is going on Chess24. Thanks Monty. My question, I was told that in the Slav defense, d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, bishop f5 or bishop g4 is a mistake because white gets a lot of play on the queen side. You were told correctly. What would be the correct move order for white to punish black for his early bishop move? I was told you should include queen b3, cd5 and e3. Also more or less correct, e3 we could argue about. But let's see. Let's move the c-pawn back. d4, d5, c4, c6, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3. And here dc4, e6 or a6 are acceptable moves. Moving this bishop are not. Are not? Is not? If bishop f5 first, the most accurate is to go c takes d5. You want to include that exchange because if you start with queen b3, then queen b6, well, white is better as well, but black at least doesn't lose a pawn. Well, if you go cd, cd, queen b3, then black is already in real trouble. This pawn is under attack. After queen b6, you can choose the better endgame, or you can grab the pawn. This is an important trick, because here we have a Zwischenschach, and white wins a pawn. So this is a good line for white. And if black tries to keep his pawn by playing b6, normally he loses by force. I've never really bothered to remember or to analyze how this is done, but some e4 business. By the way, I've disabled the engine because it was making my stream too slow. So don't count on whatever this little bar is saying. So after e4 takes knight e5, I believe white is winning by force. e6 check. And g4, something like this. Just overloading the black pieces, bishop g4, knight e4. Gets punished very cruelly, but you don't need to remember all this craziness if you just look at this position, and white just develops. White would be seriously better as well. So yeah, bishop f5 is not good because of takes, followed by queen b3. And bishop g4 is probably even worse because now you jump to e5. And if the bishop moves, our knight is already active on e5. And here it takes, queen b3. Looks even stronger. Maybe even e4 immediately is good. So yeah, developing this bishop is wrong because it leaves the black queen side vulnerable to these early queen b3s. It works if white plays a little more slowly, like if white plays e3 instead of knight c3, then you can get away with developing it, because let's say if we try the same here, black can comfortably defend everything by playing queen c7 or queen b6, but with the knight on c3, you just can't do that. Hope that helped you. Walter Sobczak has a second question, but I'm already struggling answering one question each. So sorry, Walter, not gonna be able to do it. Victory Win is saying, hi Jan, this might sound a bit crazy, but does this opening line sound interesting for black? c4 g6. We've talked about c4 g6 at some length earlier. So yeah, c4 g6, very interesting. It is a bit short, but there are not many variations in this line. For instance, c4 b6. Are you trying to confuse me by first giving g6 and then b6? Or did you mean b6 all the way? I'm not sure, Victory Win. Anyway, for instance, c4 b6, knight c3, bishop b7, knight f3, knight c6, g3, e6, bishop g2, g5. Yeah, none of this makes a lot of sense, but maybe it is part of your scheme to befriend Richard Rapport, who has some sympathy for e6 followed by g5 schemes. How did it go? b6, knight c3, bishop b7, knight f3, knight c6. For example, if I go d4 here, I'm not sure you will enjoy yourself very much. But g3, e6, still d4. Anyway, bishop g2, g5. Still d4, g4, knight e5. Yeah, what do you want me to say? That's not very good. It's not necessarily the fault of the move 1b6. I would say the culprit is the move knight to c6 here. If you play c5 or whatever, you'll probably be doing okayish. All right, last question. Zemi Zinfol is saying, Dear Jan, in the French main line, e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, 4 bishop g5, black has basically 3 big moves to react, which are 4 bishop e7, 4 bishop b4, and 4 d takes e4. Please give us some idea which one you would choose as black. And you're asking this in full knowledge that I never play the French and will never play the French, right, Zemi Zinfol? And why? You said on several occasions that French is not for you, but hope you can evaluate some pros and cons. Thanks, and please go on to produce some new exciting video series. I'm busy, but yeah, I'm sure we will find time one day. Won't be on the French though, so much I can guarantee. So what was the question? Yeah, what to do in that line of Le Français. e4, e6, d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5. Not very common nowadays, by the way. Most people, probably because it gives black 3 major options, prefer to go e5 nowadays. So bishop g5, which one would I choose? And yeah, I would never choose any, so it's hard for me to answer. Since I dislike French structures, I would probably be drawn to de4, knight e4, bishop e7, which I guess has a decent reputation nowadays. Bishop f6, gf. Morozevich used to play like that, so I might be tempted to do this. Since I am a bit of a computer spacebar nerd, I might also be tempted to go bishop b4, e5, h6, which leads to the most irrational positions, especially in the sharp lines after bishop e3, knight e4, or bishop c1, knight e4. I know nothing about this, but I know Paco Vallejo plays this, and I know he's normally very concrete and hard-hitting with his opening preparation. So this might be a surprise choice. I have no idea. Like, all three moves, as far as I know, are doing fine. This has also not been refuted. This leads to a French structure, which I would not enjoy playing. But so probably I would be least likely to play this. But it's also fully playable, for all I know. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't give you a lot of context since I never played 1e4 and never played the French. But yeah, if put on the spot, I would probably go bishop e7 here and play bishop f6, gf, knight f3. I don't even know theory. Is a6 still topical? a6 is what Morozevich used to do. b6 also looks like a logical move to me. So I'd probably do one of those. I believe that is the end of our little show. Thank you guys for contributing with all the questions. Sorry, we had to close the questioning at some point, but you can see I'm 4 hours in and I barely made it through. And I shouldn't admit this, but it takes me quite a bit of time to prepare for it because I would like to see your questions in advance. So I have something sensible to say, because chess openings are a wide field. Anyway, I hope I have been able to give you slightly useful answers. Of course, it's always hard to hit the right tone if I'm not exactly sure of players' level and their willingness to spend time on looking at openings and so on. So normally I just give my opinions and you run with it. Feel free to ignore me. I'm used to that. Any wise closing words? No, not really. Thanks for contributing. If you enjoy what we're doing here, or if you have your own questions, consider becoming a premium member. That also gives you access to all the video series on Chess24. Of course, it gives you the rights to play in all the Banter Blitz shows. You can play against the Grandmaster. You can use the full functionality of the analysis, the database tool, all the good stuff, the tactics trainer. So it is whatever, $9.99 per month, $100 a year. I believe it is worth it for all you guys that want to improve your chess. And I know you do, because else you would not be watching 4 hours of my opening clinic giving condescending advice. Nah, stop playing sidelines, play main lines. That really is the Cliff's Notes. Just play the main lines. Just do whatever the computer says in any position. But thanks anyway. Apologies for my sometimes snarky remarks. Apologies for my constant apologizing. Apologies for the tech issues. All that stuff. See you guys next time.